A federal fugitive is running for a fortune. A widow is waiting for him. And Eldridge Sample is running out of time. Long ride. Chapter 1. Is that him? The clerk, Doolin, squinted from the courthouse steps, holding a stack of depositions against his chest. He tasted the dust that blew up from the street. The deputy, standing at the bottom of the steps, spat a stream of tobacco. That's Sample's horse. But I don't know what that is he's leading. Eldridge Sample rode down Garrison Avenue. He didn't look at the stores. He didn't look at the people who stopped to watch him. He looked straight ahead, at the federal courthouse, at the brick and stone promise of a hard bed and a hot meal. He'd been riding for 2 days. The horse under him was done. The horse he was leading was, too. He pulled up in front of the steps. The smell hit Doolin first, a ripe, sweet rot smell that made him put a handkerchief to his nose. Eldridge sat in the saddle for a long 10 count. He was covered in black soot, his face cut from rock, his coat torn. He looked like a man who had crawled out of a chimney. He put a hand on the saddle horn and swung his leg over. His knees buckled. He caught himself, his hand on the horse's flank. Doolin started down the steps, his shoes clicking. Marshal, Sample. Is that? Judge Parker is expecting a report on. He's here, Eldridge said. His voice was a dry rasp, full of trail dust and smoke. Doolin stopped. Who's here? Eldridge didn't answer. He walked to the horse he was leading. He unhooked the canteen and drank the last hot mouthful. He threw the canteen onto the street. On the horse's back was a long, canvas-wrapped bundle. It was tied with rope, but the rope was soaked in dark, dried fluid. Flies were thick on it, a black buzzing cloud. My God, Doolin whispered. People were stopping. A saloon girl on her way to work. A blacksmith, his apron dark. 2 men in suits. They kept their distance. The smell was enough. Is that him? The blacksmith asked, his voice low. Is that Cowboy Jim? Eldridge pulled the knot, his fingers stiff and clumsy. The rope fell away. He grabbed the edge of the canvas. Marshal, no. Doolin said, his voice high. Not in the street. In front of the courthouse. Eldridge pulled the canvas back. It wasn't a man. It was what was left of one. Broken like a doll made of sticks, stuffed into the canvas. The face was gone, smashed by the impact, eaten by scavengers. But the white hat, caked in mud and blood, was still tied to the saddle horn. The blacksmith whistled. He got him. He really got him. Eldridge dropped the canvas. He turned and started walking up the steps. Doolin scrambled in front of him, blocking the way. Marshal, you can't. You need to see the undertaker. You need a bath. The judge is in session. Eldridge looked at him. He didn't stop. He put his hand on Doolin's chest, on the clean white shirt, and moved him aside. Doolin stumbled, his depositions scattering across the steps. You can't, Doolin said, grabbing at the papers. Eldridge walked into the courthouse. He left muddy, sooty boot prints on the clean, polished floor. He walked past the clerk's desks, past the warrant room. He didn't stop until he was at Judge Isaac Parker's door. He didn't knock. He just opened it. The courtroom was silent. Parker was on the bench, his white beard spread, his eyes like iron. He was sentencing a horse thief. Mr. Sample, Parker said, his voice a low growl of thunder. You are not on the docket. Eldridge walked to the rail. He stood there, smelling of smoke and horses and death. He's outside, Eldridge said. Parker looked at him. He looked at the soot, the blood on his cheek, the exhaustion. He saw a man who had been to the edge and had just come back. Who, Parker said, his voice flat, is outside? Jim Cutler, Eldridge said. He's on a horse. What's left of him? The courtroom was so quiet, Eldridge could hear the horse thief breathing. Parker stared at him. Then he banged his gavel. Once. This court is recessed. 1 hour. He stood, his black robe swirling, and walked into his chambers. He didn't invite Eldridge. He just expected him to follow. Eldridge went through the gate and followed him. Parker's office was neat. Books, maps, a decanter of whiskey. Parker shut the door. He turned. He's dead. He fell 500 feet, Eldridge said. He was dead before he hit the bottom. I just made sure. For a second, Parker smiled. A thin, tight-lipped smile of pure satisfaction. You did it. You actually did it. He moved to the decanter. We'll have a drink. I'll call the papers. A federal victory. He wasn't alone, Eldridge said. Parker stopped, his hand on the glass. What? We hit his camp. In the Kiamichis. He was with his core group. Diego Cruz. Amos Teeter. The Yates brothers. And Parker poured 2 glasses. And they scattered. Eldridge walked to the desk. He pulled a burned, water-damaged ledger from his coat and dropped it on a stack of legal briefs. It left a wet black stain. That's his accounts. That's all that's left of the camp. Parker looked at the ledger, then at Eldridge. He pushed one of the whiskey glasses across the desk. The prisoners' sample. Where are the prisoners? Eldridge looked at the whiskey. He didn't touch it. Thomas Going Snake is dead. Parker's hand, holding his own glass, stopped halfway to his mouth. How? Jim shot him. In a rock chimney. He fell 100 feet. He's dead. Damn, Parker said. He said it quiet. He put the glass down. He was a good man. The best tracker in the Cherokee Nation. He was, Eldridge said. His light horse friends, Johnny and James, they're taking him to his wife. In Tahlequah. And the prisoners? Parker asked again, his voice harder. Teeter. Cruz. The ones who got away. Thomas tracked Teeter south. I don't know where he is. Samuel Checote. The Creek captain, Parker nodded. He's got the others. Diego Cruz, the Potts brothers. He took them to Okmulgee. To hold for us, Parker said. Good. No, Eldridge said. To try. Parker looked at him. The pleasure was gone. His eyes were iron again. To try. By what authority? Creek authority. Jim burned a family on their land. They see it as Creek business. Burning a family is everyone's business, Parker snapped. Those men are federal prisoners. They're witnesses. I want them here. In my court. Then you'll have to go and ask Captain Checote for them. Eldridge finally picked up the whiskey. He drank it. The burn was good. And you'll have to ask him for the money. The money. The 5,000. From the buyers. We found it in the camp. You found it. Excellent. That's federal evidence. Where is it? Half of it, Eldridge said, setting the empty glass down, is in my saddlebag. It's for you. And the other half. Eldridge looked Parker right in the eye. Samuel Checote took it. Parker's face went white. Then it went red. He took it? He stole federal property. He called it a widow's pension, Eldridge said. For Thomas. He said it was Creek money, taken on Creek land. He said it was fair. Fair. Parker's voice was a low roar. This isn't about fair, Marshal. This is about the law. The law says that money is evidence. The law says those men are my prisoners. And you let a Creek policeman walk away with both. I was on his land, with 2 of his men. Thomas was dead. Jim was still running. I had to make a choice. You made the wrong one. I got Jim, Eldridge said. That was the job. The job, Parker said, walking around the desk, is whatever I say it is. And I'm saying you're not done. You're not even close. Eldridge stood. He was tired. He could feel the cuts on his face. Get that body to the undertaker, Parker ordered. Get it on ice. I want the Gazette to see it. Then get yourself a bath. And a new coat. Eldridge walked to the door. And Marshal? Eldridge stopped, his hand on the knob. Be in my office at 6. With the money. We're going to write a report. And then, Parker said, we're going to make a plan. You're going back to Okmulgee. Eldridge looked back. Am I? You are, Parker said. You're going to get my prisoners, and you're going to get my money. The law doesn't stop at the Arkansas River, Sample. You're going to remind Captain Checote of that. Eldridge opened the door and walked out. Chapter 2. 6 o'clock, Marshal. You're prompt. Judge Parker was standing by his window, looking out at the lights of Garrison Avenue. He wasn't wearing his robes. He looked smaller, but harder, like a piece of iron ore. Eldridge Sample stood in the doorway. He'd had a bath. The hot water had stung the cuts on his face. He'd bought a new shirt, flannel, stiff with sizing. He was clean. He didn't feel any better. You said 6, Eldridge said. I did. Parker turned. Come in. You're not the only one I'm seeing. Eldridge walked in. The office was different. 2 other men were there. One was thin, with a high starched collar and spectacles. He sat in a chair by the desk, a leather satchel on his lap, like he was afraid the floor would stain it. He looked like he'd never been on a horse. The other man was standing by the fireplace, his elbow on the mantel. He was big, with a thick walrus mustache and a gut that pushed against his vest. A silver badge, tarnished, was pinned crooked on his coat. He wasn't looking at Eldridge. He was looking at the fire, even though it was just embers. Eldridge walked to the desk. He unhooked a canvas sack from his belt and dropped it. It landed with a heavy, metallic clink. The money, Eldridge said. $2,500. Federal gold. The man in the chair looked at the bag, then at Eldridge. His eyes were pale, disapproving. You're Marshal Sample, the man said. It wasn't a question. This, Judge Parker said, walking over, is Mr. Shaw. From the U.S. Attorney's Office. He's here to handle the legalities. The legalities, Shaw repeated, his voice thin. Yes. He opened his satchel and pulled out a piece of paper, a pen, and a small bottle of ink. He didn't touch the money. Your report was brief, Marshal. I was tired, Eldridge said. You stated you allowed a Creek light horse captain to seize half of the $5,000 in recovered federal property. I stated he took it. An act of theft, Shaw said, tapping his pen on the paper. Committed by a tribal officer. And you let it happen. I was on his land. With his men. My partner was dead. My priority was Jim Cutler. Your priority, Shaw said, is the enforcement of federal law. In all its aspects. That's enough, Mr. Shaw. Parker's voice cut in, sharp. He put his hand on the money bag. The Marshal understands his priorities. He just needs reminding. Parker looked at the big man by the fire. Heck. The big man turned. His eyes were heavy-lidded, bored. He looked at Eldridge. He looked at the clean shirt, the cuts. A slow smile that didn't touch his eyes crept into his mustache. "This is Deputy Marshal Heck," Parker said. "He'll be providing the muscle. Mr. Shaw will tell you what to do. Deputy Heck will make sure it gets done." "Heck," Eldridge said, nodding. Heck didn't nod back. "Sample. I heard you went and got Jim Cutler." "That's right." "Heard you lost Thomas going snake getting him." "That's right too." Heck pushed himself off the mantel. He walked over, his boots heavy on the wood floor. He was a good 4 inches taller than Eldridge, and 50 pounds heavier. He smelled like whiskey and stale tobacco. "I knew Thomas," Heck said, his voice a low rumble. "Good man. For a Cherokee. Stupid, trusting a federal badge. Look where it got him." "Heck," Parker warned. "I'm just saying," Heck said, his eyes on Eldridge. "You ride with dogs, you get fleas. You ride with Indians, you get dead." Eldridge looked at Heck. He didn't move. He didn't change expression. He just looked. He saw the gut. He saw the badge. He saw the man. "You got something to say, Deputy?" Eldridge asked. "Yeah, I do." Heck tapped Eldridge on the chest with a thick finger. "You're going back. To Okmulgee. And this time, you're not making deals. You're not playing friends with the light horse. You're going with me. And we're gonna get our money. And we're gonna get our prisoners." "And if Captain Checote says no?" Eldridge asked, not moving. Heck smiled. "That's when Mr. Shaw here reads his paper. And I do my job. And you," he tapped Eldridge again, "you stay out of the way." Eldridge looked at the finger, then at Heck's face. He didn't say anything. "That's the plan," Judge Parker said, stepping between them. "Mr. Shaw has the writ. It demands the immediate turnover of federal prisoners Amos Teeter, Diego Cruz, and the Potts brothers. It demands the immediate return of the stolen federal property. That's $2,500, Marshal. To the dollar." "And if they've already tried them?" Eldridge asked. "If they've already spent the money?" "That," Mr. Shaw said, finally looking up from his paper, "is an act of insurrection against the United States government. And we will treat it as such." "We'll treat it as a fight," Heck said, grinning. Parker went to his desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out a box of cartridges. He slid them across the desk. "You'll ride at dawn. Mr. Shaw has the warrants. Deputy Heck has 3 men waiting at the livery. They are, shall we say, less familiar with the creek." "You're sending an army," Eldridge said. "I'm sending a message," Parker said. "The law doesn't stop at the river. I told you that. You tried to tell them. You failed. Now, you're going to show them." Eldridge looked at Shaw. He looked at Heck. This wasn't a posse. It was a fuse. "This is a mistake," Eldridge said. "Your mistake," Parker said, his voice cold, "was letting a tribal policeman dictate federal policy. My correction is to make sure it never happens again. You're dismissed, Marshal." Eldridge didn't take the cartridges. He turned and walked to the door. "And Sample?" Heck's voice. Eldridge stopped, his hand on the knob. "Try to keep up. This ain't no slow trail hunt. This is business." Eldridge opened the door and walked out into the hall. He didn't slam it. He just closed it, quiet. Chapter 3. "That's his horse," Heck said, his voice full of breakfast and whiskey. "The one that smells like a graveyard." Eldridge Sample was at the livery, saddling his bay. It was still dark, the air cold and damp from the river. The body horse, the one that had carried Jim, was gone. The undertaker had taken it, canvas and all. Heck's 3 deputies were already mounted, their horses blowing fog. They were a set. One was heavy, with a greasy beard and a sharp's rifle. One was thin, with a cough. The third was a kid, maybe 19, with a new gun belt that didn't fit. Mr. Shaw stood by the livery door, his leather satchel in his hand, looking at the horse they'd given him. It was a sway-backed mule, mostly. Shaw looked like he'd rather be walking. "We burning daylight, Sample," Heck said. He was on a big sorrel that looked as mean as he did. Eldridge didn't answer. He finished the cinch, checked it, and swung into the saddle. He rode out of the livery, not looking at them, just heading for the river. Heck laughed, a low rumble, and followed. The deputies and Mr. Shaw fell in behind, a cloud of noise and clinking metal. They crossed the Arkansas River on the ferry, the one George Talbot used to run. The new ferryman didn't say a word. He just took their money and watched them, his eyes on their guns. As soon as the ferry touched the west bank, the territory side, the kid deputy pulled a flask. "Here we go, boys," he said, his voice high. "Indian country." Heck reached over, took the flask, and drank deep. He wiped his mustache and handed it back. "Save some, kid. It's a long, dry ride." Eldridge was already moving, his horse finding the trail, heading southwest. He rode 20 yards ahead, his back to them. He could hear them. They were loud. The kid was talking about a girl in a saloon. The bearded one was complaining about the food. Heck was humming, a tuneless buzzing sound. Shaw rode up beside Eldridge. His knuckles were white on the reins. The mule was a rough ride. "Marshal," Shaw said, his spectacles fogging. "The legal precedent for this action is firm. The 1883 Supreme Court ruling. Ex parte Crow Dog. It affirms federal jurisdiction in major crimes." Eldridge looked at him. He didn't say anything. "I'm just saying," Shaw said, trying to find his seat as the mule stumbled, "that we are on solid legal ground. Captain Checote, he has no standing." "He has men," Eldridge said. His voice was flat. "Yes, well, so do we." Shaw looked back at Heck and his men, like he wasn't sure if that was a good thing. Eldridge pointed, his finger a quick, sharp gesture. "There." Shaw squinted. "What?" "Tracks. 2 riders. Shod horses. Headed south. They crossed here this morning." Heck rode up, pushing his horse between them, making Shaw's mule dance. "You see a ghost, Sample?" "I don't see nothing but dirt." "They're there," Eldridge said, riding on. "Not our business." "You're damned right it ain't," Heck said, spitting. "Our business is in Okmulgee. And I, for one, plan to get there, get our property, and get back to a decent drink." He kicked his horse, cantering past Eldridge, his deputies scrambling to keep up. They rode like that for an hour. Heck in the lead, his men spread wide, making noise. Eldridge and Shaw 50 yards back, eating their dust. Then Eldridge pulled up. Heck was a quarter-mile ahead. He didn't notice. "What is it?" Shaw asked, pulling his mule to a grateful stop. Eldridge was looking at the ground. He dismounted. He knelt, studying a patch of scrub oak. Heck finally saw that they were gone. He rode back, his face red under his mustache. "What in the blue hell are you doing, Sample? We ain't hunting rabbits." Eldridge stood up. He held a Winchester cartridge in his palm. It was new, the brass shiny. "Man was here," Eldridge said. "This morning. Waited." "Waited for what?" Eldridge pointed to the tracks Heck's posse had just ridden over, churning them. "For us. He was watching the trail. He saw you coming." Heck looked at the cartridge. He looked at the tracks. He looked at Eldridge. So, some hunter. He was on high ground. lying down, watching us. He left this when he pulled out. Eldridge tossed the cartridge in his hand. He's reporting, heck. To Oak Mulgee. They know we're here. They know how many. Heck's face got darker. That Creek bastard. He's got spies. He's got friends, Eldridge said. This is his land. Not ours. He mounted his horse. And now he knows you're coming. Heck stared at him. Then he spurred his horse hard, riding southwest, not saying a word. They didn't stop that night. They rode until midnight, the moon a sliver. Heck was pushing, angry now. The kid had stopped talking. They made a cold camp in a dry wash. Heck's men built a fire. A big one. The bearded deputy, Dobie, threw a whole branch on, sending sparks up into the night. No fire, Eldridge said. Heck was unrolling his bedroll. My men are cold. They're eatin' cold. They're gettin' a fire. A fire like that, Eldridge said. You can see it for 5 miles. You're just putting a target on us. Let 'em come, Heck said. That's what I'm here for. Mr. Shaw was rubbing his backside, wincing. A small fire, gentlemen. Perhaps a compromise. Eldridge didn't compromise. He took his bedroll and his rifle and walked 50 yards up the wash into the darkness. He found a spot behind a high rock where he could watch their back trail. He sat, his back to the stone. He didn't unroll the bed. He just sat and watched and listened to Heck's men laugh around the fire. Chapter 4. They built it out of wood, Heck said, his voice a low, disgusted rumble. Figured it'd be all hides and mud. Oak Mulgee wasn't a camp. It was a town. The streets were laid out clean. There were brick buildings, a general store with glass in the windows, a post office. Smoke rose from a dozen chimneys, smelling of hickory. Eldridge Sample rode his horse down the center of the main street. He rode ahead of Heck, of Shaw, of the 3 deputies. He wanted the town to see him first. He wanted them to see the badge, not the posse. They were waiting. Not with guns. Just waiting. Men on the boardwalk stopped, their hands still. A woman holding a basket of laundry paused, her eyes on Heck's men. The town was holding its breath. A man stepped out of the light horse office. He wore a clean blue uniform, a silver badge pinned to his chest. It was James, the Creek light horseman who had climbed the rim with him, who had helped him find Thomas. James looked at Eldridge. He nodded once, his face carved from wood. Marshal. He didn't look at the men behind him. James, Eldridge said. He pulled up. Heck's big sorrel pushed in, crowding Eldridge's horse. This the reception? One man? We're here to see your boss, boy. James's eyes moved to Heck. They were cold. Captain Checote is with the chief. They're waiting for you. At the council house. Waiting for us, Heck said, smiling. He looked at his deputies. They knew we were coming. Spooky. He found the cartridge, Eldridge said, quiet. James's eyes flicked to Eldridge, a flash of understanding. This way. You can leave your horses. You're not invited to bring your rifles. Heck laughed. He swung down from his horse, his boots hitting the ground with a heavy thud. I don't get invited, son. I go. He unstrapped his Winchester and racked around into the chamber, a loud metallic shlack. And my rifle goes with me. James looked at the rifle. He looked at Heck. He looked at Mr. Shaw, who was climbing off his mule, his legs shaking. The chief says no guns in the council house, James said, his voice flat. That's the law. This, Heck said, patting his Winchester, is my law. Heck, Eldridge said. Heck looked at him, his face a purple mask of arrogance. He's not a threat, Eldridge said. He's an escort. Let's not get shot before we've had our say." Heck stared at him, his mustache twitching. He wanted to hit something, but he wanted to see the look on their faces when Shaw read the paper more. "Fine," Heck grunted. He slid the rifle back into its scabbard, but he didn't disarm. He left his pistol. So did his men. Eldridge looked at James. "It's all right." James just turned his back stiff. "This way." They walked. The 6 of them, following a single light horseman. The deputies walked with their hands near their guns, their eyes scanning the rooftops, looking for an ambush. There was no ambush. There was just a Creek woman sweeping her porch, a blacksmith hammering on an anvil, a town that was working. The council house was the biggest building, set in the center of a square. It was 2 stories, built of new-cut pine, with a long porch. It looked more like a courthouse than any Eldridge had seen in Texas. Inside, the room was full. It wasn't a mob. It was a government. Maybe 40 Creek men seated in rows. They were older, their faces serious. At the front, at a long oak table, sat Chief Isparhetcher. He was a big man, his shoulders heavy, his hair gray. He wore a white man's suit, but it looked like it belonged to him. Standing beside him, his arms crossed, was Samuel Checote. He wore his light horse uniform, and his badge was polished. He looked at Eldridge. There was no welcome in his eyes. Just disappointment. Heck's boots were loud on the plank floor. He walked to the front, his men fanning out behind him. "Who's in charge here?" Heck boomed. Chief Isparhetcher looked at him. He didn't stand. "I am." His voice was low, but it filled the room. "Good." Heck turned. "Shaw. You're up." Mr. Shaw stepped forward. He was sweating. He fumbled with the latch on his leather satchel, his pale hands shaking. He pulled out a stack of papers. I am Mr. Shaw of the United States Attorney's Office. I am here by the authority of Judge Isaac Parker and the Federal Court of the Western District of Arkansas." Shaw started to read. He read for 5 minutes. He read about federal jurisdiction and obstruction of justice and heretofore and in violation of. He read the names: Amos Teeter, Diego Cruz, Billy Potts, Eugene Potts. He finished with the money and the immediate return of federal property, to wit, $2,500 in recovered gold. He finished, folded the paper, and looked at Isparhetcher triumphant. The room was silent. Isparhetcher looked at Samuel Checote. Samuel stepped forward. He didn't look at Shaw. He looked at Eldridge. "Marshal Sample," Samuel said. "When you left, you had a dead man. And you had a job. You finished it. We heard about Jim." "You heard," Eldridge said. "And now you're back. With these men." Samuel's eyes flicked to Heck. "For prisoners. And money." "We're here for federal property," Heck said, his patience gone. "Are you going to give it to us, or do we have to tear this town apart?" Isparhetcher stood up. He wasn't as tall as Heck, but the room shrank around him. "You will tear nothing," Isparhetcher said. His voice was like a stone drum. "You come into our house with your paper, and you talk of law. You do not know the law. You are on the soil of the Muskogee Creek Nation. Your paper is paper. Here we have our own law. And it has been satisfied." Shaw sputtered. "Satisfied? You cannot just satisfy a federal writ." "I can," Isparhetcher said. "The prisoners you seek, they have been tried by a jury, by our law, for the crimes they committed on our land." You tried them?" Shaw was horrified. "We did," Isparhetcher said. The boy, Eugene Potts. A child. We found he acted under threat. He has been transferred to the federal garrison at Fort Gibson. He is already in your custody. Heck's face went blank. The man, Billy Potts. He aided you, Marshal. That was taken into account. He was found guilty of theft and accessory. He was given 50 lashes. He was branded. He is banished. His justice is done. He is gone. And Diego Cruz? Eldridge asked, his voice quiet. He died of his wounds, Samuel said, stepping in. Before the council could hang him. He is in the ground. Shaw was pale. This is an outrage. A violation of treaty. It is justice, Ispar Hetcher said. You should try it. Heck's face was a dark purple red. He looked like he was about to burst. The money. What about the money? Ispar Hetcher said. The money. $2,500, Heck snarled. Ours. The money, Ispar Hetcher said, was recorded. It was witnessed. And it was delivered. It has been given, in its entirety, to the widow of Deputy Marshal Thomas Going Snake. In Tahlequah. The room was absolutely silent. We call it, Ispar Hetcher said, his voice soft, a widow's pension. A federal marshal died, protecting our land, doing your job. It seemed appropriate that his family be provided for. It is not property. It is a debt. And it is paid. Heck's hand was a white-knuckled fist on the grip of his Colt. You. Thieving. Indian. Heck took one step forward. Every light horseman in the room stood up. James was there, his hand on his pistol. Lockhart, the hard-faced councilman, was smiling. There were 15 of them. Heck stopped. He was in a box. Eldridge Sample stepped forward. He looked past Heck at Ispar Hetcher. The other one, Eldridge said. Amos Teeter. You didn't mention him. Ispar Hetcher looked at Samuel. He escaped, Samuel said. His face was granite. 2 nights ago. He killed a guard. He's gone. He what? Heck spun, his fury finding a new target. You let him escape. He was your prisoner, Samuel said, his voice a whip crack. He was in our jail, waiting for your paper. He was a federal problem. And he got out. Maybe, Samuel said, if you hadn't sent scouts and we hadn't been watching the trail, my man would still be alive. Heck was speechless. He had been outmaneuvered, disarmed, and dismissed, all by a man in a clean uniform. This ain't over, Heck said, his voice a low, strangled sound. He pointed a thick finger at Ispar Hetcher. I'm not leaving. We're staying. We're finding Teeter. And we're finding that money. If we have to pull it out of that widow's hands. You may stay, Ispar Hetcher said. He sat down. This is a free town. But your authority. Your paper, it stops at that door. Heck turned and stormed out of the council house, his deputies scrambling after him. Shaw, his face the color of old paper, gathered his useless writ. He looked at Eldridge. Marshal? Are you? Eldridge looked at Samuel. Samuel looked back. He didn't nod. He just watched. Eldridge turned and walked out of the council house, into the sunlight, where Heck was already kicking a horse trough. Chapter 5. Where's the saloon? Heck's voice was a low growl. He stood in the middle of the Oak-Mulgee Square, his big shoulders hunched, his hands balled into fists. He watched the Creek councilmen file out of the council house, their faces like stone. They didn't look at him. They just walked past, like he was a piece of furniture. Mr. Shaw was at his elbow, flapping. Deputy, I must advise. Our position is untenable. We should withdraw to Fort Smith and seek clarification from the judge. This is a clear jurisdictional. We need a drink, Heck said. He saw a painted sign down the street, tavern. He started walking. His 3 deputies followed. Dobie, the big one with the beard, the kid who looked like he was about to be sick, and the thin one who was coughing into a gray handkerchief. Eldridge Sample didn't follow. He stayed by the horse trough, the one Heck had kicked. He watched them go. Heck pushed the batwing doors open and stormed into the tavern. The room went silent. It wasn't empty. It was full. Lockhart, the hard-faced councilman, was at a back table with 3 other men. They had been laughing. They stopped. The bartender, a Creek man with scars on his arms, was wiping a glass. He stopped. "Whiskey," Heck said. His voice was too loud. The bartender didn't move. "I said whiskey." Heck hit the bar, his fist landing heavy. "And not the swill you sell your friends." "We're all friends here, Deputy," Lockhart called from his table. His voice was soft, but it carried. Heck turned slow. He smiled, a joyless parting of his mustache. "Are we? I thought friends didn't steal. I thought friends didn't let murderers escape." "We're a poor town," Lockhart said, leaning back in his chair. "Our jailer, he was old. Teeter was strong." "He was a federal prisoner," Heck said. He walked toward the table. His deputies spread out, their hands near their guns. Eldridge Sample stepped into the tavern. The batwing doors thwapped behind him. He didn't go to the bar. He stood by the door, his eyes adjusting to the gloom. A moment later, the other door, the one that led to the street, opened. Samuel Checote and James stepped in. They didn't go to the bar, either. They stood by their door. The room was a box. "You think you're smart," Heck said to Lockhart. He was 3 feet from the table. "You and your chief. You think you pulled one over on us." "We just live here," Lockhart said. "You're the ones passing through." "We ain't passing through." Heck turned back to the bar. "Whiskey. Now." The bartender looked past Heck, at Samuel Checote. Samuel gave a small, almost invisible nod. The bartender put a glass and a bottle on the bar. Heck poured a full glass, drank it, and slammed the glass down. "This ain't over." He threw a silver dollar on the bar. It spun, noisy. "You," Heck said, pointing at Eldridge. "You're just gonna stand there, watchin'. Whose side are you on, Sample?" "I'm on the side that finds Amos Teeter," Eldridge said, his voice flat. "We ain't findin' him in here." Heck wiped his mouth. "We're gonna start with that jail. See how a man escapes with no noise." Heck started for the door, then saw Samuel blocking the other one. He turned and walked back toward Eldridge. "The jail is Light Horse property," Samuel said. His voice was calm. "I've got a federal writ that says I can go anywhere I want," Heck lied. "You've got a paper that's been satisfied," Samuel said. "But you want to see the jail? Be my guest. We have nothing to hide." Heck stared at him, looking for the trap. He found none. He grunted and pushed past Eldridge out into the street. Mr. Shaw, who had been hiding by the horse trough, scurried up. "Gentlemen, this antagonism is not productive." Heck ignored him. He stomped across the street to the 2-cell jail, his men at his heels. He kicked the door open. It was a flimsy pine door, already unlocked. Heck went inside. Samuel and Eldridge stood in the street, watching. "He's a loud man," Eldridge said. "He's a stupid man," Samuel said. "Stupid men are loud. They get people killed. He thinks you let Teeter go." "I know what he thinks." Samuel looked at Eldridge, his eyes hard. "My man is dead, Marshal." The man Teeter killed. He was my wife's cousin. You think I let that happen?" "No," Eldridge said. "Heck is your problem. You're a federal marshal. Control him. He doesn't listen to Parker. He's not going to listen to me. Then you have a choice to make." Heck came storming out of the jail. His face was a dark purple red. "It's clean," he yelled at Shaw, who jumped. "The cell's been scrubbed. There's no blood. No sign of a fight. No broken lock. You. He stalked over to Samuel, his finger out, jabbing. "You let him go. This was a setup. You and your chief, you played us." "My man is dead," Samuel said, his voice a block of ice. "I don't care about your man," Heck yelled. The whole town could hear him now. People were coming to their windows. "I care about my prisoner." Heck shoved Samuel. A hard, two-handed push to the chest. Samuel stumbled back a step. He didn't lose his balance. He just straightened his uniform. James's hand was on his gun. Lacquer, watching from the tavern door, was smiling. "You're not in charge here, deputy," Samuel said. "I'm in charge of me." Heck poked Samuel in the chest. "And I'm not leaving. We're gonna find that money. And we're gonna find Teeter. And if I have to put this whole town in irons, I will." Heck turned, his rage finding no purchase. He saw the general store. "Dobie. Kid. We're getting supplies. We're setting up at the livery. We're staying." He stomped off, his men following, leaving Eldridge and Samuel in the square. "He's going to get himself killed," Eldridge said. "He's going to get someone killed," Samuel corrected. He looked at Eldridge, his eyes full of a disappointment that was worse than anger. "Fix this, Marshal. Or we will." Samuel turned and walked back to the Light Horse office, James at his side. Eldridge stood alone. Mr. Shaw was wiping his spectacles, his hand shaking. Well, that was not productive. A boy ran into the square. He was maybe 12, his feet bare, kicking up dust. He was crying. "Captain," he yelled, running for the Light Horse office. "Captain Checote." Samuel came back out, his hand on the doorframe. "It's Mr. Tima," the boy sobbed. "The merchant. The one from Walitka." Heck, who had been yelling at the store owner, stopped. He turned. "What about him, boy?" Samuel asked, his voice calm. "He's dead," the boy cried. "Down by the river crossing. His wagon's in the water. He's been robbed. And shot." Heck started walking back, a slow, ugly smile spreading across his face. He walked right past Samuel, past Eldridge, and stood in front of the boy. "Robbed," Heck said. "And shot. A new crime. On Creekland." He turned and looked at Samuel. Well, Heck said, his voice full of triumph. "Looks like we've got jurisdiction, after all." He jabbed a thick finger at Shaw. "That's a major crime, ain't it, lawyer? Murder and robbery." Shaw nodded, confused. "Why, yes, deputy. I believe it is." "Then it's federal business." Heck grabbed the kid by the shoulder. "Show me. Show me the body. This," he said loud to the whole square, "is a federal investigation now." Chapter 6. "Show me," Heck said, his hand clamped on the boy's shoulder. "Show me the body." The boy, Tima's son, just sobbed, his feet frozen in the dust of the square. He said, "Show you, Dobie," Heck's big deputy said. He grabbed the boy's other arm. They half dragged, half marched him toward the river road. Heck's other two men, the thin one and the kid, followed, their rifles out like they were expecting an ambush. They looked ridiculous. Mr. Shaw hurried behind them, his satchel flapping. Deputy Heck." We should secure the scene. We must establish a perimeter. Heck didn't look back. I am the perimeter. Eldridge Sample and Samuel Checote stood alone in the square. The town was watching, silent, from behind curtains. He's your man, Marshal, Samuel said. He's Parker's, Eldridge said. Same thing. Samuel looked at Eldridge, his face hard. This is my land. My investigation. He's a guest. He's a guest who just took over your house. He can have the house, Samuel said. He won't find anything. He turned and started walking, not fast, just a steady pace toward the river. Eldridge watched him for a beat, then followed, his own steps falling into the same rhythm. They were at the crossing in 5 minutes. It was a mess. A single freight wagon, its canvas cover soaked and sagging, was nose down in the Deep Fork River. The back wheels were still on the muddy bank, the wagon tilted at a bad angle. The 2 mules that had been pulling it were floating, their harnesses tangled, their bodies bumping against the wagon's side. Heck was already in the mud. He was standing calf deep, yelling, "Dobie, get in the water. See if there's a box. In the hell, boss, it's wet. Get in the water." Dobie, his big Sharps rifle still slung on his back, waded in. The kid and the thin deputy were standing on the bank, holding the horses, looking green. Mr. Shaw was on the bank, his little notebook out, his pen shaking. Victim is not visible. The wagon appears, compromised. Where's the body? Heck roared, looking at the crying boy who was holding himself by a tree. He was there, the boy wept, pointing at the dark water near the wagon. Heck waded deeper. He put his hand on the wagon's side and looked over. Well, there he is. Heck's voice was conversational. He reached down, grabbed a handful of shirt and hauled. The body of Mr. Tima came out of the water with a wet, sucking sound. He was a small man, creek, his hair plastered to his face. Heck dragged him onto the bank, dumping him in the mud like a sack of grain. Yep, Heck said, rolling the man over with his boot. He's dead. He stood over the body, triumphant. Shot. In the back. See. Robbery. Pockets are turned out. Eldridge and Samuel stood 10 feet away, on the dry part of the bank. They hadn't moved. They were just watching. This is federal jurisdiction, Heck said loud for them. Murder and robbery. Major crimes. Mr. Shaw. Indubitably, Shaw said, scribbling. The act, the corpus delicti, is confirmed. We're in charge now, Captain, Heck said to Samuel. Samuel didn't look at Heck. He looked at the bank. His eyes were moving, scanning, reading the mud. You're ruining the tracks. I'm finding clues, Heck said, kicking at a piece of harness. Dobie. You find a box. Nothing, boss. Dobie yelled from the wagon. He was pulling up wet canvas, throwing bolts of cloth into the river. Just blankets. And seed. Lots of seed. No box. Heck looked down at the body. So the killer took it. He was a local. One of yours. He jerked his chin at Samuel. Someone who knew Timo was coming to town. Knew he had money. Samuel just kept looking at the ground. Eldridge walked away. He walked upstream, his eyes on the high bank, the one that looked down on the crossing. Heck saw him. Where are you going, Sample? The body's here. Eldridge didn't answer. He just kept walking. He found it in a patch of scrub oak, 50 feet above the crossing. A spot where a man could lie flat, rest a rifle on a rock, and not be seen. He knelt. The grass was matted down. There were fresh boot prints. And a single brass cartridge, glinting in the sun. He picked it up. It was heavy. .45 to 70. A rifle cartridge. He pocketed it and walked back down. When he got there, Samuel was kneeling by the body. Heck was watching him, his arms crossed, a smug look on his face. "He was shot from the bank," Samuel said. He wasn't talking to Heck. He was talking to himself. "I just said that," Heck said. "No," Eldridge said. He walked over, standing above them. "He was shot from the high ground." Heck looked at him. "What?" Eldridge pointed to the body. "You rolled him. Look at his shirt. The hole in the front. It's small. Clean." Heck bent down. He looked. "Now turn him back over," Eldridge said. Heck, his face clouding, rolled Tima back onto his stomach. The hole in his back was a ragged, bloody mess. "That's an exit wound," Samuel said, his voice quiet. "He was shot from the front," Eldridge said. "From a distance. While he was driving." Heck stood up. He looked at Eldridge. He looked at the high bank, where Eldridge had just been. He knew he'd been shown up. "So," Heck snarled, "he's still dead. He's still robbed. It's still federal." "It's not a robbery," Eldridge said. "His pockets are turned out." "And clean," Eldridge said. "Look at him. No mud on the inside. He was robbed before he hit the water. Or he was pulled from the wagon, robbed on the bank, and then pushed in." "You're talking in circles." "I'm talking about a killer," Eldridge said, "who wasn't in a hurry. He shot his man. He came down. He took his time. He went through the wagon. He took the money. He turned out the pockets. Then he pushed the wagon into the river to make it look like an accident." Heck's face was purple. "It's the same. He's dead." "It's not the same," Samuel said, standing. He'd been walking the bank while Eldridge was talking. He held up his hand. He was holding a boot print. A piece of mud scooped from the ground. "This isn't Tima's boot. It's not yours. It's not mine. It's a professional," Eldridge said. He looked at Heck. "This wasn't some farmer who got mad. This was an execution." Heck's brain, slow and mean, finally put it together. He saw his opening. "A professional," Heck said, his voice a low growl. "A man who's good with a rifle. A man who doesn't mind killing." He started walking back toward the horses. "A man," Heck said, "who just killed a guard. A man who just escaped a creek jail." He got to his horse. He put his foot in the stirrup. "This ain't a local matter, Captain," Heck said to Samuel. "This ain't a merchant. This is Amos Teeter. He's still here. And he's killing again." Heck swung into his saddle. "Dobie. Kid. You're with me. We're tearing this town apart until we find him." He spurred his sorrel, sending a spray of mud onto Mr. Shaw, and galloped back toward Okmulgee. His men scrambled to follow. Samuel and Eldridge stood on the bank, alone with the dead man. "He's wrong," Samuel said. "He's got a suspect," Eldridge said. "He's wrong." Samuel held out the piece of dried mud, the boot print. "I know Teeter's boot. He's a size 12. This is a size 9. Maybe 10. Eldridge looked at the boot print. He looked at the .45 to 70 cartridge he'd palmed. "Heck's starting a riot," Eldridge said. "Let him." Samuel tossed the boot print into the river. "He's chasing a ghost. He won't find him. But this man, the one who fits this boot, he's still here. And he just made a mistake." Samuel turned and started walking back to town. He didn't run. He just walked. "Saddle up." Heck's voice was a roar, bouncing off the council house. He was back in the square, his face flushed with purpose, his sorrel horse kicking up dust. "We got a murder. We got a suspect. We got jurisdiction. He jabbed a thick finger at Mr. Shaw, who was wiping mud off his satchel. You. Lawyer. Write this down. We are in active pursuit of a federal fugitive, Amos Teeter, for the murder of a creek merchant. Shaw fumbled for his pen. Yes, deputy. Active pursuit. Heck's men were already on their horses. Dobie looked bored, his Sharps rifle resting on his thigh. The kid deputy, his face pale, looked like he'd just seen his first dead body. He had. Eldridge Sample and Samuel Checote stood by the light horse office. They had walked back from the river. They hadn't hurried. He's wrong, Samuel said, his voice too low for Heck to hear. He's loud, Eldridge said. Heck rode his horse over to the general store. He looked at the creek men on the boardwalk. He looked at Lockhart, who was back in his chair outside the tavern, watching. I'm paying $2 a day. Heck yelled. Federal money. I'm deputizing a posse. We're gonna bring this Teeter in. We're gonna sweep this whole damn territory. Nobody moved. Lockhart sipped his drink. The blacksmith went back to hammering. What's the matter with you people? Heck snarled. A man's been murdered. Don't you care? Maybe they don't like the company, Lockhart called, his voice mild. Heck's face went purple. He spun his horse and rode over to Samuel, reining in so hard his sorrel almost sat down. Captain, Heck said, his voice a low strangled sound. I am requesting light horse assistance. You gonna give it? Or you gonna sit here while a man who killed your guard, and just killed another one of your people, runs free? Samuel looked up at him. My men are busy. We're bringing Mr. Tima home. To his wife. He's dead. He's not going anywhere. His family is, Samuel said. And the killer, he's not the man you're hunting. He's not. Heck's eyes went wide. You know who it is. You've been holding out. I know who it isn't, Samuel said. It isn't Amos Teeter. The boot print was a size 9. Teeter's a 12. Heck stared at him. He looked at his own boots. He looked at Eldridge. A boot print, Heck said, his voice full of contempt. You're gonna let a killer go over a boot print? He's wrong, Heck, Eldridge said, quiet. You too. Heck looked back and forth between them. He saw it. He was the only one not in on the joke. You're all in on it. You, him, the chief. This whole thieving town. The killer used a .45 to 70, Eldridge said, ignoring him. A single-shot rifle. A buffalo gun. Teeter uses a Winchester, same as you. Maybe he found a new gun. He's not here, Heck, Eldridge said. You're chasing a ghost. Heck sat on his horse, his big hands clenching the reins. He looked at Eldridge. He looked at Samuel. He knew, deep in the gut he trusted, that they were right. And he knew he couldn't back down. Not in front of the town. Not in front of his men. A .45 to 70, Heck said, his voice soft. He looked at his man, Dobie, the one with the beard. The one with the big Sharps rifle. Dobie, Heck said. Yeah, boss. What caliber's that cannon you carry? Dobie patted his rifle. This. .45 to 70, boss. Heck smiled. A slow, ugly, triumphant smile. He looked at Eldridge. A .45 to 70. Well, well. So, one of my men is the killer. Is that what you're saying, Sample? No, Eldridge said. I'm saying. You ain't saying nothin'. Heck's good humor was back. He was in charge, again. You two are slowing me down. You're conspiring. Obstructin'. He pointed south. Teeter killed that guard. He's an escaped federal prisoner. He just murdered a man for his wagon. And he's running south. That's the story. That's the report I'm written. He's not south, Samuel said. My trackers followed him. He went north. 2 days ago. He's at the Cimarron by now. Your trackers, Heck scoffed. He's south. Go into Texas. 'Cause that's where I'm going to look for him. He turned to his posse. Dobie, you're on point. Kid, you watch the back. Shaw, you stay in the middle. We ride south. We find tracks, we follow him. We find Teeter, we don't bring him back. Deputy, Shaw said, his voice a high-pitched whine. The prisoner must be taken alive, for trial. The prisoner, Heck said, is armed and dangerous. And he just resisted arrest. He looked at Eldridge. You comin', Sample? Or you stayin' here with your friends? Eldridge looked at Samuel. Samuel gave him nothing. I'm staying, Eldridge said. I'm starting my own investigation. You do that. Heck laughed. He spurred his horse. We'll be back. With Teeter's head. And the money. He galloped out of town, his 3 deputies and a terrified Mr. Shaw scrambling behind him, a cloud of dust and noise. The square was quiet again. He's going to get himself killed, Eldridge said. Not soon enough, Samuel said. He's chasing the wind. He'll be back in 2 days, empty-handed and meaner. Eldridge looked at Samuel. A size 9 boot. A buffalo gun. And a man who wasn't in a hurry, Samuel said. He's not Teeter. He's not a running man. He's a local. Or someone who wants us to think he is. No, Samuel said. He's local. He knew Timo was coming. He knew the crossing. And he knew we'd be distracted. He looked at Eldridge, his eyes hard. He knew you were here. With Heck. Eldridge was quiet. He used us. He used Heck's noise to cover his own. That's right. Samuel turned. The doctor has Tima's body. I'm going to talk to him. See if he found anything else. You. I'm going with you, Eldridge said. Samuel looked at him. You're federal. This is Creek business. Again. Heck's federal too, Eldridge said. He's chasing the wrong man. That makes it my business. I'm not here to take over, Samuel. I'm here to find the man who used my badge as a distraction. Samuel looked at him for a long 10 count. Then he nodded. Once. Fine, Samuel said. But you walk behind me. Chapter 8. He's in the back, the doctor said. The doctor was a white man, but he'd been in the territory for 20 years. His shirt was clean, but his hands were stained. He looked at Samuel Checote, then at Eldridge Sample. He didn't seem surprised to see a federal marshal following a light horse captain. Heck's men were here, the doctor said, wiping his hands on a rag. Shouting. Wanted to know if I'd seen Teeter. Heck's halfway to Texas by now, Samuel said. Chasing the wind. Good, the doctor said. He kicks like a mule. He led them through his office, past the rows of colored bottles and a single waiting patient. He pulled back a canvas sheet that served as a door. The back room was a shed. It smelled of carbolic and copper. The body of Mr. Tima was on a plank table, a wet sheet over him. Tima's son, the boy who had found him, was sitting on a stool in the corner, his knees drawn up. He wasn't crying anymore. He was just watching. Samuel put a hand on the boy's head. The boy didn't flinch. You find anything, Doc? Samuel asked. Found this. The doctor picked up a small, warped piece of lead from a tin dish. Pulled it from his spine. He was dead before he hit the water. Eldridge picked up the lead. It was massive, flattened on one side from the impact. A .45 to 70. Buffalo gun, Eldridge said. He pocketed the slug. My evidence. Your evidence, the doctor said, not impressed. I got a dead merchant. He was shot from a distance, from the front. The bullet went through his chest, broke 2 ribs, and stopped in his backbone. You already knew that. What else? Samuel asked. He's clean. Eldridge looked at him. Clean. Under his nails. Clean. His pockets. Full of mud, but his hands are clean. The doctor pulled back the sheet from Tima's hand. This man was a merchant. A freight man. He worked. His hands should be calloused, dirty. They're soft. Eldridge looked at Samuel. Samuel was looking at the hand, his face a mask. And this, the doctor said. He pulled the sheet down further, exposing Tima's chest. The entry wound was a small blue hole. No powder burns. You knew that. But look here. He pointed to Tima's shoulder. A faint yellow-purple bruise just beginning to form. He was hit, Samuel said. Before he was shot, the doctor said. With a fist or a gun butt. A day ago. Maybe 2. He's got another one on his ribs. He was in a fight, Eldridge said. Not much of one, the doctor said. He was a small man. He looked at the boy in the corner. Your father, he have trouble in town. Before he left. The boy shook his head. He was at the general store. He was loading seed. Mr. Lockhart was there. Samuel and Eldridge looked at each other. Lockhart. The hard-faced councilman from the tavern. The one who hated Federals. Lockhart, Samuel said. What was he doing? Talking, the boy said. He was angry. He said my father's prices were too high. Said he was cheating the people. Was he? Eldridge asked. He was a merchant, the boy whispered. Get out, boy, Samuel said, his voice not unkind. Go home. Tell your mother. Tell her I will come see her tonight. Go. The boy slid off the stool and ran out, his feet silent on the wood floor. Samuel looked at the doctor. He was hit 2 days ago. He's seen in an argument with Lockhart. He's killed this morning. With a buffalo gun. And he's got soft hands, Eldridge said. Samuel pulled the sheet all the way off the body. He looked at Tima's feet. What is it? Eldridge asked. His boots, Samuel said. They're new. Good ones. But they're too big. Samuel bent down and pulled one of the boots off. It came off easy. Tima's foot was small. He pulled off the other. Size 9, Eldridge said, remembering the boot print. Or 10. These are size 12, Samuel said. He threw the boot on the floor. Same as Teeter. Same as heck. Same as half the men in this town. Eldridge looked at the boot prints Samuel had shown him. The one from the river. The print at the bank was a 9. That's right, Samuel said. The killer's boot. But Tima. Wasn't Tima, Samuel said, pulling the sheet back over the body. Not the man we saw, anyway. He looked at Eldridge. The body is Tima. The man at the river, the one shot, was Tima. He was thinking, putting it together. But the tracks. The boot print. Size 9. The rifle. .45 to 70. The hands soft. It's not adding up, Eldridge said. It's adding up fine, Samuel said. You're just not looking at the right numbers. He walked out of the shed, into the sunlight. Eldridge followed him. He's a professional, Samuel said, standing by the horse trough. He's not Lockhart. Lacquer is loud. He hits people in taverns. He doesn't sit on a hill with a buffalo gun and make a clean shot. Then who? Someone who knew Timo was coming. Knew he had money. Knew Lacquer had argued with him. Knew we were here. Knew Heck was a fool. Someone who wanted to set a fire, Eldridge said, and let us run to the wrong one. That's right. Samuel looked at the general store. He set Heck on a trail for Teeter. A federal problem. He set me on a trail for Lacquer. A creek problem. He's got us all running in circles. While he does what? While he gets away, Samuel said. With the real money. The money Timo was carrying. Not the box Heck was looking for. The money in his belt. Samuel started walking, purposeful, toward the general store. What are we doing? Eldridge asked. Heck's chasing Teeter. That's a ghost. I'm supposed to be chasing Lacquer. That's a distraction. You and we're the only ones not chasing. Samuel stopped, his hand on the porch rail of the store. So we're going to chase the killer, Samuel said. The man with the size 9 boot. Chapter 9. He wasn't a freight man, Samuel said. Eldridge Sample followed him into the general store. The air inside was still, smelling of burlap vinegar and ground coffee. A small man in a clean apron stood behind the counter. He was watching them through the window, had been watching them since they left the doctor's. He looked at Samuel, then at Eldridge's badge, and his face went pale. Bynum, Samuel said, his voice quiet. Captain. Bynum wiped his hands on his apron. He'd done it 3 times already. Terrible thing. Just terrible. Mr. Timo, he was just here. Yesterday, Samuel said. Tell me. He loaded up. Seed some blankets. Said he was heading back to Wolitka. That's all. Bynum looked at the floor. You're lying, Samuel said. Bynum's head snapped up. Captain, You're not a good liar, Bynum. You're jumpy. You've been jumpy since we walked in. You saw Heck's men. Now you see us. You think we're the same. We're not. The boy, Samuel said. Timo's son. He said Lacquer was here. Arguing with his father. Bynum looked like he wanted to climb under the counter. It wasn't an argument, Captain. It was just talk. What kind of talk? Eldridge asked, his first words. Bynum looked at him, surprised. Lacquer said the prices were too high. Said Timo was a thief, selling cheap seed for double. Was he? Samuel asked. He's a merchant, Bynum said, like that explained it. And his hands, Samuel said. Soft. For a man who drives a wagon. Bynum's face cleared. A small, mean smile. Timo? Drive a wagon? He'd hired a boy for that. Timo hadn't done a hard day's work in his life. He wore kid gloves. What was he? Eldridge asked. He was a gambler, Bynum said, his voice low, like it was a secret. He'd go to Fort Smith, to Texas. He'd come back, his pockets full, and he'd play merchant for a few weeks. Buyin' and sellin'. He thought it made him look important. The man in the wagon, the one who got killed, that was just a role he was playing. And Lacquer? Samuel asked. Lacquer, he hates that kind. A man who gets rich without sweating. Lacquer said Timo was a white man's Indian. Did he threaten him? Just words, Bynum said, too fast. Lacquer he talks loud. The store's bell jingled. Lacquer walked in. He wasn't carrying supplies. He didn't look at Bynum. He looked at Samuel, then his eyes settled on Eldridge. He's gone, Lockhart said. His voice was soft, dangerous. Heck's gone south, Samuel said. Not him. Lockhart took a step closer. You're white man law. It's like a sickness. You bring it here, now we have a dead merchant. He was killed by a man with a rifle, Lockhart, Samuel said. Not a federal writ. He was killed, Lockhart said, because you're all here. Because this town is full of this. He waved his hand, taking in Eldridge. Heck comes in, kicks the trough, shouts about Teeter. You're just the quiet version of the same thing. You follow him around, noddin'. We're investigating a murder, Eldridge said. This is not your investigation. Lockhart's voice rose. He jabbed a finger at Eldridge. You don't get it. This is our town. Our law. We had a problem. Teeter. He was in our jail. He killed our man. That was our business. Then you bring your circus. Heck's circus. And now, a new body. A body, Eldridge said, that Heck is chasing. He's chasing Teeter. And you're not, Lockhart said, his eyes narrowing. He was smart. Why not, Marshal? You don't think Teeter did it? The evidence doesn't fit, Eldridge said. The evidence. Lockhart laughed. You mean the boot print? The one Samuel found, after Heck and his pigs rolled all over the mud. That's good. That's real good. What do you want, Lockhart? Samuel asked. Lockhart turned to him. I want him, he pointed at Eldridge, gone. I want you, Captain, to stop partnering with them. And I want to know why you're here. In Bynum's store. When the man you should be talking to is me. You argued with Tima, Samuel said. I argue with everyone, Lockhart said. I'm a councilman. It's my job. Tima was a cheat. I told him. He laughed. Said the Creek were lazy, that's why they were poor. Said he was improving himself. Where were you this morning? Eldridge asked. Lockhart spun on him. Where was I? I was in my house. My wife saw me. My neighbor saw me. I was drinking coffee. You want to arrest me, Marshal? In my own town? On a creek, captains say so. I don't want to arrest you, Eldridge said. I want to find the man who killed Tima. Then find him. Lockhart stepped back. But don't look at me. Don't look at any creek. This stinks, Marshal. It stinks of you. A white man's murder. A setup. To make us look like we can't control our own land. To give Heck a reason. Lockhart looked at Bynum, who was trying to look invisible. You see, Bynum, this is what happens. This is what they bring. He turned and walked out. The bell jingled. The store was quiet again. Eldridge looked at Samuel. He's right about one thing. He's not the killer. He's a talker. A politician. He's a pain in my ass, Samuel said. He nodded to Bynum and walked out. Eldridge followed. They stood on the porch, the sunlight bright. The town looked peaceful. A town divided, Eldridge said. It's not divided, Samuel said. It's angry. Heck made them angry. Lockhart just aims it. He started walking toward the Light Horse office. James was on the porch, whittling. He stood when Samuel approached. Heck's gone south, Samuel said. He took his noise with him. We heard, James said. Lockhart's at the tavern. Telling everyone how he stood up to the Federals. Heard that too. Good. Samuel went into his office. It was a single room, clean, with a desk and a rifle rack. He looked at Eldridge, who had followed him in. You're in this, Samuel said. I am. Then this is how it works. Samuel turned to James. I want Lockhart watched. Not because he's a suspect. Because he's a problem. I want to know who he talks to. I want to know who's buying him drinks. He's loud, but he's not stupid. He might hear something. James nodded, closed his knife, and walked out. He didn't ask questions. Samuel looked at Eldridge. That leaves us. A size 9 boot, Eldridge said. A .45 to 70. Soft hands. A man who kills casual and isn't afraid of 2 armed posses. And a man who knew Tima had been in a fight with Lockhart. That's the part, Samuel said. The only people who knew about that were Bynum, Lockhart, and Tima. And anyone else who was in the store, Eldridge said. Bynum's a coward. Lockhart's a politician. Tima's dead. So we go back to the store, Eldridge said. No. Samuel picked up his hat. We go to the tavern. That's where Bynum will be. Talking about how Lockhart stood up to us. We'll let him drink. We'll let him talk. We'll find out who else was there. Chapter 10. He's not here, Samuel said. The tavern was half full, the afternoon light cutting through the smoke in yellow bars. It smelled of stale beer and fried meat. Lockhart was at his back table, just as he'd been. He had a bottle and 2 glasses. He was talking to a man Eldridge hadn't seen before, a white man in a mud-splattered duster. But Bynum, the storekeeper, was not here. He said he was coming, Eldridge said, his voice low. He and Samuel stood just inside the batwing doors, letting the room settle. He said he was going to talk, Samuel said. He didn't say he was coming here. A coward like Bynum. He doesn't go to the tavern to talk. He goes to his house. Locks the door. So we go to his house. No. Samuel nodded toward the bar. James was there, a mug of coffee in his hand. He hadn't looked at them when they came in. He was watching Lockhart's table in the reflection of the mirror behind the bar. Samuel walked to the bar, not to James, but to the other end. He laid a coin down. Coffee, he said to the bartender. The bartender, the one with the scarred arms, brought a mug. Heck's gone. He's gone, Samuel agreed. Town's breathing again. Not all of it. Samuel sipped the coffee. It was black and thick as mud. Tima's dead. Heard that, the bartender said. He kept wiping a glass. Bad business. Bad for the town. You know Tima, Samuel said. It wasn't a question. He'd come in. Played cards. Lost more than he won. But he always paid. In gold. The bartender looked up. He was in here 2 nights ago. With Lockhart. Eldridge moved closer. The same night as the argument. Wasn't an argument, the bartender said. Not here. It was business. Lockhart was quiet. Tima was buying. They sat right there. He pointed to an empty table by the window. Talked for an hour. About what? Eldridge asked. Didn't hear. They were quiet. But when they left, Lockhart was happy. And Tima. Tima looked like a man who just lost a hand he thought he'd won. He was scared, Samuel said. He was something. Eldridge looked at Samuel. He wasn't beaten by Lockhart in the store. He was beaten by him here. 2 nights ago. Maybe, Samuel said. He looked at James's reflection in the mirror. James was still watching Lockhart. The man in the duster, the one at Lockhart's table, stood up. He was tall, thin, with a face like a hawk. He put some coins on the table, nodded to Lockhart, and walked out. He moved easy, his spurs making a small, clean jingle. James put his coffee mug down and followed him out, casual. Who was that? Eldridge asked the bartender. Don't know, the bartender said. Rides a good-looking horse. Been in town 2 days. Stays at the rooming house. Keeps to himself. Talks to Lacquer. Thanks, Samuel said. He left his coin. He and Eldridge walked out onto the porch. The sun was low, the air cooling. So, Eldridge said, Lacquer argues with Tima in the store. A big loud show. But 2 nights before, they're in here cutting a deal. Quiet. And Tima ends up dead, Samuel said. And Lacquer is the first one in the council house to point a finger at Heck. At you. At me. He's smart, Samuel said. He's a politician. He's using the dead man to make noise. To get rid of you. Or, Eldridge said, he's the man with the size 9 boot. No. Samuel shook his head. It's not Lacquer. He doesn't have the nerve. He talks. He doesn't shoot. Not with a buffalo gun, from 100 yards. That's clean. That's a white man's kill. James came walking back up the street, his hands in his pockets. He didn't look at them until he was on the porch. He went to the telegraph office, James said. Eldridge and Samuel looked at each other. The telegraph, Eldridge said. Heck didn't even know they had one. He's sending a message, Samuel said. To who? To the man he works for, James said. The white man. The one who just left. No, James said. He is the white man. The one in the duster. Name's Rourke. He's a land buyer. From Kansas. A land buyer, Eldridge said. What's he doing talking to Lacquer? He's talking to the whole council, James said. Trying to get them to lease grazing land. North of here. Near the Cimarron. Where Teeter is, Samuel said, his voice flat. Eldridge put it together. Teeter escapes. 2 days later, a merchant is murdered. Heck, the federal law rides south chasing Teeter. A land buyer, who's been here for 2 days, sends a telegraph. It's a distraction, Samuel said. All of it. The murder, it wasn't about Tima's money. It was about this. About getting Heck out of the way. About getting us out of the way. Chasing ghosts. While Rourke does what? Eldridge asked. While he closes his deal. And Teeter? Teeter, Samuel said, is just a piece on the board. He's the ghost. Rourke. Rourke is the man moving him. And the money? Eldridge asked. The $2,500. The widow's pension. Samuel's face went hard. What about it? Rourke's a land buyer, Eldridge said. He's in town. Teeter's at the Cimarron. Teeter was Jim's man. He knows about the money. Samuel saw it. He's not just a ghost. He's a threat. He's after the money, Eldridge said. Thomas's money. And he's not in Texas. He's north. Just like you said. Tahlequah, Samuel said. His voice was a whip. That's where the money is. That's where Thomas's wife is. He didn't run. He walked fast to the Light Horse office. James. Samuel yelled, throwing the door open. Get the horses. We're riding. Now. Where to? Tahlequah. We're going to see a widow. Eldridge was right behind him. I'm coming with you. Samuel stopped, his hand on his rifle. This is Creek business, Marshal. This is my business. Teeter is a federal fugitive, Eldridge said. And Thomas was my partner. That makes it my business, too. Samuel looked at him for a long 10 count. He saw the soot still in Eldridge's hair. He saw the cuts. He saw a man who didn't quit. Fine, Samuel said. but you ride behind me. Chapter 11. James, Samuel Checote said, his voice a low, urgent clip. Get the sorrel. Not the bay. He's faster. And a sack of cartridges for the Winchester. He was in the light horse office, grabbing his own rifle from the rack. Eldridge Sample was right behind him, pulling his saddlebags from the corner where he dropped them. The realization had hit them both at the same time, cold and hard. Tahlequah. Rourke, the land buyer, sending a wire. Teeter, the fugitive, running north. And Thomas going Snake's widow, alone in a house with $2,500 in federal gold. It wasn't a distraction. It was a plan. He's got 2 days on us, Captain, James said, coming back from the small tack room. Teeter's on the Cimarron. We're in Okmulgee. He's not at the Cimarron, Samuel said. He was checking the load in his rifle. He's just north. He's waiting. He's waiting for Rourke's wire. The wire that says, go. The wire Rourke just sent, Eldridge said, pulling the cinch strap tight on his saddlebag. Go, Samuel said to James. Get the horses. We ride in 2 minutes. James ran out the front door, his boots hitting the boardwalk. Samuel looked at Eldridge. This is our mess, Marshal. Mine and yours. We brought the Federals. We brought heck. We stirred the pot. Now Teeter's. A sound from the back. Not a shot. A thud. A heavy, wet sound, like an axe hitting green wood. Eldridge and Samuel looked at each other. They didn't speak. The jail was behind the office. Samuel was moving before Eldridge had his hand on his pistol. He kicked the back door open and was in the yard, his rifle up. The yard was empty. The door to the 2-cell jail was open, swinging just a little. Kona, Samuel said, his voice a whisper. He ran. Eldridge was 2 steps behind. The jailer, an old Creek man named Kona, was on his face in the dirt a few feet from the open cell. A tin plate of cornbread was scattered in the dust next to him. His keys were in the lock. The back of his head was a dark, wet mash. Samuel knelt. He didn't need to check for a pulse. He looked at the piece of firewood, split and bloody, lying next to the old man. He was feeding him, Samuel said. His voice was dead. Eldridge looked at the cell. It was empty. Amos Teeter was gone. He was here, Eldridge said. The whole time. He wasn't north. He wasn't south. He was right here. Waiting. Samuel stood up, slow. His face was a mask of cold, controlled fury. He had been played. While he was at the river. While he was at the doctor's. While he was at the general store, piecing it all together. Teeter had been 10 feet away, in a cell, listening. He waited, Samuel said. He waited for Heck to leave. He waited for me to leave. He waited for the whole town to be distracted. He waited for his chance, Eldridge said. He looked at the lock. Kona opened the door. To give him food. He never saw it. James ran back into the yard, his face pale. The horses. Captain, the sorrel is gone. Samuel looked at him. He didn't move. What? The sorrel. The one you asked for. He's gone. The livery man, he's on the ground. Not dead. Just hit. Eldridge and Samuel looked at each other. The pieces didn't click. They slammed. He heard us, Eldridge said. He was in the cell. He heard you through the window. He heard Tahlequah. He heard faster. He heard Rourke. No, Samuel said. He walked fast out of the jail yard, through the office and onto the main street. The street was quiet. Peaceful. Heck's noise was a bad memory. The livery was 50 yards away. The liveryman was sitting on a bale of hay, holding his head. "Captain," the man said, groaning. He came out of nowhere. "Big fella. Asked me which horse was the fastest." "The sorrel." "Your sorrel." I told him. He hit me." "How long?" Eldridge asked. 2 minutes. 3. I just woke up." He rode north. Hard. "He's not waiting for a wire," Samuel said. His voice was raw. "He is the wire. Rourke just kept us busy. Kept Heck busy. Kept me busy." "He's got 5 minutes on us," Eldridge said. "On your fastest horse. And he's going to Tahlequah. He's going for the money." "He's going for a widow," Samuel said, his voice like a piece of cold iron. "And he's a dead man." He turned to James. "Get the horses. The bay. The Marshal's gelding. And Lockhar's." "Lockhar's?" "He's at the tavern. He rode his horse here. Get it. I don't care what you tell him. Get the horse. We're riding." James ran. Eldridge stood with Samuel. The town was still. They could hear the blacksmith far away. "He's a professional," Eldridge said. "He killed Kona. He didn't use a gun. He just did it. And he's racing us." "He's not a professional," Samuel said. "He's just an animal. And we're going to put him down." James came running, leading 3 horses. Eldridge's bay, a Creek light horse mount, and a fine-looking black horse that looked angry. Lockhart came running out of the tavern, a bottle in his hand. "Checote. That's my horse. You can't. That's stealing." Samuel didn't look at him. He checked the cinch on the black horse. He grabbed the reins. "I'm commandeering it, councilman. Light horse business. This is tyranny." Lockhart yelled, his face red. Eldridge grabbed the reins of his bay. He looked at Lockhart. "Your horse or a dead widow? You choose." Lockhart stopped, the bottle halfway to his mouth. He didn't have an answer. Samuel swung into the saddle of the black horse. Eldridge mounted his bay. "James," Samuel yelled. "Captain, get every man you have. Get a horse. You follow us. He's 2 hours ahead of you, but you follow. We'll slow him down. Or he'll slow us down. You just follow." "What about Heck?" James asked. "Heck's in Texas. He's irrelevant." Samuel kicked Lockhart's horse hard. The horse, surprised, leaped forward, its hooves digging into the Okmulgee street. Eldridge was right beside him. They galloped out of town north, leaving Lockhart standing in the dust, his mouth open. Chapter 12. "He's running," Heck said, his voice a satisfied boom. He reined in his sorrel, sending up a spray of red dirt. He pointed. "See. Right there." His posse pulled up behind him, a jumble of tired horses. Mr. Shaw, on his mule, looked like he'd been beaten with a bag of rocks. Dobie, the bearded deputy, squinted. "What is it, boss?" "Tracks." Heck dismounted, his boots hitting the ground. He knelt by a patch of soft earth, just off the main trail south. 2 horses. Shod. One's got a cracked hoof, see? Left 4. Heck stood, triumphant. "That's him. That's Teeter. And he's got a partner. He's running for the Red River, just like I said." "Deputy," Shaw said, his voice a thin whine. "How can you be certain that is him? This could be a farmer." "A farmer?" Heck laughed. "A farmer riding this hard. Riding south, away from the law." He spat a stream of tobacco. "That's him. And we're gonna catch him. He swung back into his saddle, ignoring the groan from Shaw. We're on him, boys. He's maybe 6 hours ahead. He thinks he's safe. He's not. He spurred his horse, charging south. His posse, a mess of clinking metal and coughing men, scrambled to follow, pushing deeper into the false trail. He's losing his wind, Eldridge said. He was riding next to Samuel Checote. They weren't galloping. They were moving at a fast, steady, ground-eating pace. A cavalry trot. The kind of pace that kills a horse in a day. Lockhart's black horse, the one Samuel was on, was handling it. Its ears were up, its stride long. Eldridge's bay was not. The horse was a step behind, its head starting to drop. Its flanks were dark with sweat, its breath coming in short, ugly coughs. It was the same horse he'd ridden into the Kiamichis. The same horse he'd pushed to the edge, hunting Jim. It had no edge left. He's done, Samuel said. He didn't look at Eldridge. He just looked at the northern road. He's not gonna make it another 10 miles. He'll make it, Eldridge said. No, he won't. Samuel pulled up. Lockhart's horse stopped, still fresh, blowing easy. Eldridge's bay stumbled to a halt, its head hanging. You're 30 pounds lighter than me, Samuel said. Take the black. It's your horse, Eldridge said. Commandeered. And it's the only one that's getting to Tahlequah. Samuel swung down. He didn't wait for an argument. He walked back to Eldridge, his face granite. Get off. Give me your saddle. Eldridge looked at him. He looked at the bay, its sides heaving. He saw Thomas falling in the chimney. He saw Kona, the jailer, in the dust. He swung down. They didn't talk. They worked. They pulled Eldridge's saddle from the bay and threw it on the black. The black didn't like it. It danced sideways, its eyes white. Easy, Samuel said to the horse, his voice a low rumble, holding its head. Eldridge pulled the cinch tight. He looked at his bay, standing in the road. What about him? He's a horse, Samuel said. He'll find grass. Or he won't. He's not our problem. A widow in Tahlequah is. He turned to the light horse mount, the one James had brought. It was a solid, steady horse, but it was no racer. Samuel put his own saddle on it. We lost 20 minutes, Eldridge said, swinging onto the black. The horse felt like a coiled spring under him. We'll make it up, Samuel said, mounting. Teeter's on a fast horse. But he's a big man. He'll ride it into the ground. We just ride. Samuel kicked his horse, and it moved, a steady, fast trot. Eldridge fell in beside him. Heck's halfway to Texas by now, Eldridge said. Good, Samuel said. He can have it. Heck's posse found the campfire at dusk. It was still warm. See, Heck said, dismounting. He kicked at the embers. He was right here. Not 2 hours ago. Cookin' a rabbit. Dobie picked up a boot print in the ash. This ain't Teeter's boot, boss. It's small. Moccasin. So, he's with a Kiowa. Heck kicked the fire apart. I don't care. He's here. He's close. Deputy, Shaw said, his voice weak. He was sitting on a rock, holding his back. It's dark. My mule, it's limping. Get off and walk then. Heck looked at his men. They were beat. Their horses were drooping. Fine. We camp here. We'll use his fire. Is that wise? Shaw asked. He might circle back. Heck laughed, a mean, loud sound that scared the birds from the trees. Let him come. We'll be waitin'. He threw his saddle on the ground and pulled a bottle from his saddlebag. We're on him, boys. We're on him. They sat, their fire a bright, obvious star in the dark, their voices loud. Heck was already drinking, telling the kid how he'd single-handedly run a gang out of Denison. Eldridge and Samuel rode in the dark. They didn't stop. They walked the horses for an hour, trotted them for 2. The moon was a sliver, giving just enough light to see the road. Eldridge was on Lockhart's horse. It was a good one. It didn't fight him. It just ate the miles. "He's got 6 hours on us, Samuel," Eldridge said. "Closer to 8 now," Samuel said. His voice was just a tired sound in the dark. "And he's on the sorrel. He'll be in Tahlequah by noon tomorrow. And we'll be there by dark. A day late. We're not going to make it." It wasn't a question. No. Samuel kept riding. "But we have to. James is behind us. With more men. He's 2 hours back, maybe 3. He's on a good horse. He's not fast enough either." No. Samuel pulled his horse to a walk. "So we changed the plan. We're not racing Teeter to Tahlequah." Eldridge pulled up beside him. "What are we doing?" "We're splitting up." Samuel pointed. "The trail. It forks here. This is the main road. It's fast. It's what Teeter's on. This one," he pointed to a smaller, darker trail leading into the hills. "This one's the old mail run. It's rough. But it's shorter." "How much shorter?" 6 hours. If the horse doesn't break a leg." "And Tahlequah?" "This one," Samuel said, pointing to the rough trail, "comes out 5 miles west of Tahlequah. The main road comes in from the south. He'll beat us to town. But maybe we can beat him to the house." Eldridge looked at the main road. He looked at the dark trail. "You take the hard trail," Eldridge said. "You're on the light horse mount. It's steady. This one," he patted the black horse, "he's a racer. He's fast, but he's not careful. He'll break his leg in there." Samuel looked at him. He saw the logic. "I'll stay on the main road," Eldridge said. "I'll push him. When James catches me, we'll push him harder. We'll be the noise. You be the trap." Samuel nodded. "Once. He'll be at her house by noon. He'll be watching it. He won't go in till dark." "So you've got till dark," Eldridge said. "Good." Samuel turned his horse into the dark, rough trail. He didn't look back. Eldridge watched him go, the sound of his horse's hooves on the rock fading. He was alone again, on the main road, with a stolen horse under him, and a long way to go. He kicked the black, and it leapt, running into the dark. Chapter 13. The black horse was running on memory. Eldridge Sample could feel the animal failing, its lungs burning, its stride short. He'd pushed it for 18 hours. He'd been on the main road, the noise, just as he and Samuel had planned. He'd seen James and 2 other light horsemen an hour back, their horses fresh, and had waved them on. He hit the outskirts of Tahlequah at 1 in the afternoon. The town was quiet, asleep in the heat. He rode straight for the light horse office. He saw the sorrel first. It was tied to the hitching rail, head down, lathered in white foam, its sides heaving. One of its flanks was slick with blood, a long, shallow cut from a spur. Teeter. He was here. Eldridge swung off the black horse. His legs almost buckled. He didn't bother to tie the reins. He pulled his Winchester from the scabbard and walked, his boots quiet in the dust, toward the office. The front door was splintered, hanging off one hinge. He heard a man groan. Eldridge stepped through the broken door, his rifle up, his eyes adjusting to the gloom. "You're late, Marshal." Samuel Checote was on the floor, his back against a desk, his face the color of wet ash. His left leg was stretched out, his trousers soaked in blood. James was in a chair, a shotgun across his lap. His face was a mess, his nose broken, one eye swollen shut. He was breathing hard. He was fast, James whispered, his voice thick. What happened? Eldridge asked, his eyes scanning the room. He was faster than we thought, Samuel said, his voice tight with pain. My shortcut, it was rough. Broke my horse's leg. Had to walk the last 5 miles. He got here an hour ago, James said, spitting a tooth onto the floor. Me and Johnny were here. Waiting. He just walked in. Like he was paying a bill. Shot Johnny before he could stand. Eldridge looked. He saw the light horseman, Johnny, half hidden by an overturned table, his eyes open, staring at the ceiling. He hit me, James said. Kept hitting me. He's strong, Marshal. He wanted her, Samuel said. He knew. He knew we'd move her. He knew she'd be here. Where the safe is. Her. Thomas's widow. Anna, Samuel said. She's in the back. In the holding cell. He's got her. Eldridge walked to the heavy wooden door that led to the cells. It was closed. Teeter. Eldridge yelled. The silence stretched. Eldridge could hear the flies buzzing around Samuel's leg. Then a voice. A low, mocking rumble from the other side of the door. Sample. Is that you, Marshal? God damn, you're a slow bastard. Let her go, Teeter. Can't do that. Not yet. The voice was calm, casual. We're negotiating. He wants the money, Samuel said from the floor. The 2,500. Thomas's money. It's in the safe. He can't get in. Only I have the key. Well now, Teeter's voice called. Looks like your partner just showed up. And he looks like a man who can persuade you to find that key. You open that door, Teeter. I'll kill you, Eldridge said. You'll kill her, Teeter corrected. I got her right here. She's a good-looking woman, Sample. For a Cherokee. Thomas always did have good taste. A woman cried out. A short, sharp sound cut off. James tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't hold him. He fell back, the shotgun clattering. You see, Teeter said, his voice pleased. We're all just friends in here. Now, here's the deal, Captain. You slide that key under the door. I get the money. I take the woman. I ride out on your best horse. You get to live. He's lying, Eldridge said to Samuel. He'll kill her anyway. I know, Samuel said. You're talking too much out there. Teeter yelled. I'm a patient man, but I'm not that patient. You got 10 seconds to slide that key, or I start on her. And I'll start slow. Eldridge looked at Samuel. Samuel was bleeding out. James was broken. Johnny was dead. The key, Eldridge said. Where is it? My boot, Samuel whispered, his eyes on the door. Eldridge knelt. He reached down and slid his fingers into Samuel's right boot. His hand closed on a cold, small iron key. He pulled it out. Time's up, Teeter yelled. I've got the key, Eldridge shouted. Right here. Well, throw it under then. Eldridge looked at the bottom of the door. There was a 2-inch gap. He looked at Samuel. The safe. Where? My office. To the right. Behind the map. He'll kill her as soon as he has the money, Eldridge said. I know. He opens that door, Eldridge said. He'll use her as a shield. I know. Samuel's hand went to his pistol, but it was on the floor 10 feet away. I'm waiting, Marshal. Eldridge walked to the desk. He grabbed the heavy cast-iron inkwell. He walked back to the door. You want the key, Teeter? Slide it. You'll have to come get it. Eldridge didn't slide the key. He threw the inkwell. He threw it as hard as he could, not at the door, but at the window on the far side of the room. The glass exploded, a crash of noise and light. "Now!" Eldridge yelled. He aimed his Winchester, not at the door, but at the hinges. He fired. The .44 slug tore the top hinge out of the wood. The door sagged, crooked. He fired again. The bottom hinge exploded. The door, held only by the lock, fell inward into the cell block. Eldridge was through the opening before it hit the floor, rolling into the dark hallway, his rifle up. Chapter 14. Eldridge Sample hit the floor and rolled. The heavy door, blown from its hinges, crashed down, raising a thick cloud of plaster dust and splinters. The hallway was black, the only light coming from the office behind him. A muzzle flashed in the dark. The boom of the pistol was deafening, the sound trapped in the narrow space. The bullet tore through the falling door, right where Eldridge had been, thudding into the desk in the outer room. Eldridge didn't fire. He was on his side, his Winchester up, but he had no target. Just blackness. He could smell him. Whiskey, sweat, and the metallic tang of fear. "You shot her, Marshal." Amos Teeter's voice was a panicked roar from the back cell. "You blew the door, and you killed her." "He's lying," Samuel Checote's voice came, thin and strained from the office floor. Eldridge didn't answer. He moved, sliding on his belly low against the wall. He felt the cold stone on his cheek. He slid past the first empty cell. He saw them. A tangle of shadows in the second cell, at the end of the hall. Teeter was a mountain of a man, his shape filling the doorway. He had Anna going snake in front of him, his left arm hooked around her neck like a vice, her feet barely touching the floor. In his right hand, a pistol was pressed to her head. "The key, Sample!" Teeter yelled, his voice tight. He was dragging her, using her as a shield, moving into the small hallway. "Slide it. Or she's dead. Right now." Eldridge was flat against the wall, 10 feet away. He couldn't see his sights. He could just see the shape of the woman, her dark hair, her white dress. "I've got it," Eldridge said. His voice was calm. "Let her go." "You think I'm a fool?" Teeter laughed, a low, wet sound. "I'm walking out. You're gonna help me. I want the money. I want a horse. And I want her. Till I'm clear." "He's bleeding, Marshal," Samuel yelled from the outer room. Eldridge saw it. A dark, wet trail leading from the outer office where Teeter had stood to the cell. "James hit him," Samuel's voice came again, weaker. "With the shotgun. Buckshot. In the leg." "Shut up, old man," Teeter roared. He fired his pistol, blind, through the doorframe. The shot ripped through the desk, sending a spray of paper into the air. Samuel grunted. "He's hit," Eldridge said, testing. "I'm fine," Teeter yelled, his voice strained. "But she ain't." He put pressure on Anna's neck. She gasped, a choked, terrible sound. "The key. Now. Or I end her." Eldridge had the key in his left hand, the metal cold and small. He looked at the floor. He saw the safe, just where Samuel had said. In the small office between the cells, its door half hidden by a torn map of the Cherokee Nation. Teeter was between him and the safe. "All right," Eldridge said. He tossed the key. It didn't go to Teeter. It skittered, metallic, on the plank floor, stopping in the middle of the hallway, 5 feet in front of Eldridge, 5 feet from Teeter. In the open. "Come and get it," Eldridge said. You bastard." Teeter stared at the key. He couldn't reach it. Not without letting go of Anna. Not without exposing himself. "You want the money," Eldridge said. "You want the key. You'll have to come into the light to get it. You come get it for me. Or she dies. I'll do it, Marshal. I killed Kona. I killed your man, Johnny. She's just one more. No, Eldridge said. The silence was absolute. Just the sound of Teeter breathing, heavy. The sound of Anna crying, quiet. The sound of Samuel trying not to groan. Teeter was thinking. He was bleeding. He was trapped. His plan was falling apart. Fine, Teeter said. He shoved Anna forward, hard. She stumbled out of the cell, into the narrow hall, and fell. Get the key, woman. Get it. Or I'll shoot you where you crawl. Anna was on her hands and knees. She was between them. Eldridge saw his shot. Over her head. At Teeter's face. Anna saw it too. She was on the floor, looking up at Eldridge. Her eyes were not afraid. They were black, and they were full of hate. She was Thomas Going Snake's wife. She didn't crawl for the key. She saw the overturned, three-legged stool by the wall, the one Johnny must have fallen over. She didn't crawl. She lunged. She grabbed the stool leg, spun on her knees, and swung it, hard, at Teeter's shins. Teeter roared, a sound of pure surprise and pain. He hadn't expected it. The wood hit his wounded leg with a wet thwack. His pistol arm came down, a reflex away from her head. Eldridge fired. He didn't aim. He pointed. The Winchester boomed in the small space, the muzzle flash a ball of orange that lit the hall. He fired again. The first shot hit Teeter in the chest, stopping him. He stood for a second, his mouth open, his pistol still in his hand. The second shot hit him in the neck. It threw him back, slamming his head against the stone wall of the cell. He slid down, his pistol clattering on the floor. He left a long, red smear on the wall. He was dead before he stopped moving. Eldridge was on his feet, his rifle up, moving toward Anna. Anna was still on her knees, the stool leg held tight in both hands. She was shaking, but she was alive. Eldridge walked past her. He kicked the pistol away from Teeter's hand. He looked at the man who had caused all this. The man who had killed Kona. Who had killed Johnny. He put 2 more cartridges into his rifle, his hands moving steady. He heard boots. Fast. James was at the doorframe, his broken face a mess, the light horse shotgun in his hands, ready to finish it. Eldridge just looked at him. It's done. He turned and offered a hand to Anna Going Snake. Chapter 15. Anna Going Snake looked at Eldridge's outstretched hand. She didn't take it. She put her own hand, the one not holding the stool leg, against the doorframe. She used it to pull herself to her feet. Her legs were shaking, but she stood. She looked at Amos Teeter's body, slumped against the far wall, a dark pool spreading on the floor. He killed Johnny, she said. Her voice was flat. Empty. I know, Eldridge said. A groan from the outer room. Marshal. Eldridge moved, stepping back over the broken, splintered door. Samuel Checote was trying to sit up, pushing his back against the desk. His face was the color of wet paper, his eyes squeezed shut. The blood on his trouser leg wasn't a stain, it was a current. He's done. Samuel whispered, his teeth gritted. He's done. Eldridge knelt beside him. He pulled his knife and slit Samuel's trouser leg from ankle to thigh. The wound was high up, near the groin, a ragged, ugly tear where the buckshot had spread. James, Eldridge said, not looking up. James was leaning in the doorway, the shotgun in his hands, his face a swollen purple mask. Yeah. He used your gun on him. After he hit you. This is buckshot. The key, Samuel said, his breath hissing. The money. Anna. She's fine. Eldridge looked back. Anna was standing in the cell block doorway, still holding the stool, her eyes fixed on Teeter. "She's fine. We need a doctor." "Doc's in Okmulgee," James said. He spat a bloody tooth onto the floor. "That's a day's ride." "There's a town doctor," Anna said. Her voice was sharp, cutting through her own shock. "Dr. Ellis. 2 blocks east. The blue house. Go." James looked at her. He nodded once and stumbled out the broken front door, using the shotgun as a cane. Eldridge wadded up a stack of wanted posters from the desk and pressed them hard against the wound. Samuel roared, a low animal sound. "The money," Samuel said again, his hands gripping Eldridge's shoulder. "Teeter," he said, he knew. "The safe." "He was in the cell," Eldridge said, his voice low, his hands firm. "He heard us in Okmulgee. He heard Tahlequah. He heard money. He heard Rourke. He took his chance." "He killed Kona," Samuel whispered. "For this. For money." "Was it?" Eldridge said. He looked past Samuel's boot, into the cell block. At Teeter's body. At his feet. The boots were big. Worn. Size 12 easy. "Samuel," Eldridge said. "What?" "The boot print. At the river. The man who killed Tima." Samuel's eyes, clouded with pain, sharpened. They focused. "Size 9. That's right." Eldridge looked at the dead man. This wasn't him. Teeter didn't kill the merchant. He what? Teeter was just an animal. He was in the cage. He heard us talking about the money. He broke out. He ran for the money. That's all. The murder was a distraction, Eldridge said. The killer, the real killer, he used Heck. He used us. He used Teeter. He set a fire, and while everyone was running, he did something else. The town doctor, a small, fast-moving man with wire spectacles, ran in, his black bag hitting the floor. James was right behind him. "Get him on the table," the doctor snapped, seeing Samuel. "Not the desk. The table. Where I can see." Eldridge and James lifted Samuel, his arms over their shoulders. He was a heavy man. They laid him on the overturned table, the one Johnny had been sitting at. The doctor cut away the rest of the pant leg. "Dear God." "James, hold this. Press. Hard." Eldridge stepped back, his hands covered in Samuel's blood. Anna Going Snake was still standing, watching. She hadn't moved. "The key," Eldridge said to her, his voice quiet. "The one I threw. On the floor." She looked at him. She saw the key, glinting in the dust. She picked it up. "The safe," Eldridge said. "Behind the map. Open it." She moved, automatic, like a sleepwalker. She went into the small office, pulled the map of the Cherokee Nation aside, and put the key in the lock. The safe door creaked open. "It's here," she said. "A canvas bag." "Leave it." Eldridge looked at the doctor, who was working fast, pulling pads and bottles from his bag. He looked at James, who was holding his shotgun, his one good eye watching the street. He thought of Heck, 100 miles south, chasing a ghost. He thought of the .45 to 70 slug in his pocket. He thought of Rourke, the land buyer. The man with the size 9 boots. The man who had sent the telegraph. The man who was still free. Anna walked out of the office. She put the key on the desk, next to Eldridge. "It's not over," she said. Eldridge looked at his bloody hands. He looked at the dead light horseman on the floor. He looked at Samuel, his face pale, his eyes closed. "No," Eldridge said. "It's not." He walked to the door, pushing the broken wood aside. He needed to find Rourke. Chapter 16. "He's not moving," the doctor said. Dr. Ellis snapped his black bag shut. He'd been working on Samuel Checote for an hour, in the bloody, wrecked Light Horse office. The floor was covered in glass from the window Eldridge had broken. "I got the buckshot," the doctor said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Most of it. But the artery is torn. He moves, he bleeds. He bleeds, he dies." He looked at Eldridge Sample. "He stays in that bed. For a week. If he's lucky." Samuel lay on a cot they'd brought in from the back. His face was slick with sweat, his eyes closed. He was alive, but just. Eldridge looked at the doctor, then at James. James was sitting in a chair, holding a wet cloth to his swollen, broken face. His one good eye was fixed on Samuel. "Rourke," Samuel whispered, his voice a dry rasp. He didn't open his eyes. "Oak Mulgee." "He's not going anywhere," Eldridge said. "We're not, either." Anna Going Snake sat in a chair by the desk. She hadn't left. She had cleaned Johnny's shotgun and reloaded it. It was on her lap. The canvas bag with her husband's money, the $2,500, was on the floor by her feet. "He's in Oak Mulgee," Eldridge said. He picked up the .45 to 70 slug he'd taken from the doctor in Oak Mulgee. He rolled it in his palm. He killed Tima. He used Teeter. He used Heck. He used all of us. He set a fire, Samuel breathed, his teeth gritted. "Sent Heck south. Sent you north. To clear the board." "That's right," Eldridge said. "And he's still in Oak Mulgee. He's been there the whole time. Waiting." "Waiting for what?" James asked, his voice thick. "For Teeter," Eldridge said. "He sent the wire. He expected Teeter to be free to get the message. He expected Teeter to come to Tahlequah, get the money, and meet him. Or he expected Teeter to fail. He didn't care which. He just wanted noise." "He got noise," James said, spitting blood. "He got Johnny killed. He got Samuel shot. And he got away with it," Eldridge said. He walked to the door, pushing the broken frame aside. The black horse, Lockhart's horse, was still at the rail, its head low, its race finished. "He's at the rooming house. Waiting for news." "Then what are we doing here?" Anna stood up. The shotgun looked light in her hands. "Samuel can't move," James said. I can't see straight. You're one man, Marshal. And you're out of horses." "I'll go," Anna said. "No." Samuel's voice was sharp. It made him groan. You stay. With the money. With him." He nodded at his own light horseman. "I'm going," Eldridge said. He looked at James. "Can you ride?" "I can sit a horse. Shootin', that might be a problem." "Good enough." Eldridge grabbed his hat. "We need mounts." "Take mine," Anna said. She pointed out the window. "Thomas's horse. The one. His roan. It's in the stable, 2 streets over. And James, take Johnny's horse. It's still here." Eldridge looked at her. "Thomas is dead," she said, her voice flat, hard. "His money is in that bag. That man, Rourke, is part of why. He's part of all of it. Go. Take the horse. And kill him." Eldridge nodded. "Once. James." James stood, using his shotgun to push himself up. "I'm with you." They rode south. They rode all night. They didn't talk. James rode with his head tilted, his good eye on the dark road. Eldridge just rode, letting the roan, Thomas's horse, eat the miles. It was a good horse. It moved like a ghost. They hit Oak Mulgee an hour before dawn. The town was dead. Heck's fire at the livery was a cold gray ash. He was gone. The town felt empty. They didn't go to the Light Horse office. They left the horses in a dark alley and walked. "He's here," James whispered. He pointed to the rooming house. It was a 2-story wood-frame building, dark on a side street. Second floor. Back corner. The bartender's been watching. Rourke came back from the telegraph office 2 days ago. Never came out. "He's waiting," Eldridge said. "For Teeter. For news that he's got the money. He's gonna be waiting a long time." "You cover the back," Eldridge said. "The alley. He runs, you yell." James's swollen face split in a grimace. "Just yell. Not shoot. You can't see straight, James." "I can see a man running." James racked around into his shotgun. "I'll make him stop." He disappeared into the dark. Eldridge walked up the steps. The porch creaked. He didn't care about noise. He cared about speed. He tried the door. Locked. He stepped back and put his boot next to the knob. He kicked once all his weight, the memory of Thomas in it. The wood splintered. The lock popped. The door flew open. "Rourke!" Eldridge yelled, diving left, against the wall of the narrow dark lobby. "Federal Marshal. You're done." Silence. Just the smell of stale pipe smoke and dust. A floorboard creaked. Upstairs. Eldridge moved to the stairs, his Winchester up low and fast. He took the first 3 steps, his boots loud on the wood. A rifle boomed from the top of the landing. The sound was immense in the small house. The bullet, a slug the size of a man's thumb, tore a hole in the wall where Eldridge's head had been. Plaster and splinters exploded. The .45 to 70. Eldridge fell back, landing on the lobby floor, his rifle clattering. "You're the wrong Marshal." Rourke's voice from the dark at the top of the stairs. It was calm, unhurried, with a Kansas twang. "I was waiting for the fat one. The one who makes all the noise." Eldridge scrambled, his hand grabbing his rifle. He rolled fast behind a high-backed horsehair chair. "He's gone south." Eldridge yelled, his ears ringing. "I know. I watched him go." Rourke laughed, a dry, confident sound. "He's chasing a ghost. And you were supposed to be in Tahlequah. Chasing another." Boom. The second shot hit the chair. It didn't stop. It went straight through the horsehair, through the wood, and tore a chip out of the floor by Eldridge's boot. Eldridge was pinned. The man had a buffalo gun. In a house. He could shoot through the walls. He could shoot through the floor. "It's just you, Marshal," Rourke yelled. "You and your one-eyed Indian. This is my town now." Eldridge looked at the ruined chair. He looked at the staircase. He was in a box. Rourke was on the high ground. The siege was on. And he was on the wrong side of it. Chapter 17. "Nothing," Dobie said, his voice flat. He reined in his horse, the animal's head low. "Not a track. Not a boot print. That rabbit was the last thing we've seen in 10 miles. Deputy Marshal Heck spat into the red dust. The sun was an hour up, hot and mean, and the trail south was empty. He'd been made a fool of. He'd chased a ghost, just like the creek captain said he would. "He's not here," the kid deputy said, his voice thin. "Teeter's not here." "Shut up," Heck snarled. "He's here. He's just smart." "Deputy," Mr. Shaw said, his voice a dry croak from his mule. "We are low on water. The men are tired. The trail is cold. I must officially advise that we return to Okmulgee and reevaluate." "Reevaluate," Heck said, mocking the lawyer's tone. He looked at the empty, hot plain. He looked back north, toward Okmulgee. He was humiliated. He was angry. And he was going back. "Fine." He reefed his sorrel's head around. We're going back. But this ain't over. That Creek captain, he played me. Him and Sample. They're all in on it. That money's in that town somewhere. And I'm gonna find it. He kicked his horse, riding hard, back the way he'd come. He wasn't chasing anymore. He was hunting. They rode back into Okmulgee. As the sun was touching the rooftops, the town quiet, the streets empty. They were a beaten posse. Then they heard it. Boom. The sound was huge, echoing, heavy. Not a pistol. Not a Winchester. A buffalo gun, Dobie said, pulling his horse up. He knew the sound. Heck's head snapped up. His exhaustion was gone, replaced by a raw animal alertness. The shot had come from the side streets. There, Heck said. He pointed. The rooming house. He dug his spurs in, the sorrel leaping. Dobie, take the back alley. Kid, you're with me. Shaw, stay the hell here. Heck galloped down the street, his .44 in his hand. He rounded the corner, just as a second shot boomed from the upstairs window. The slug tore a chunk of wood out of the porch pillar, 2 feet from his head. Heck dove from his horse, landing hard, rolling behind the horse trough. Son of a bitch. Dobie in the alley was off his horse, his Sharps rifle in his hands. He saw a man in the shadows by the back steps. A man with a shotgun. Federal Marshal. Dobie yelled. Drop it. James, his face a swollen purple mask, his one good eye streaming, spun. He saw a shape, a rifle. He was trapped between Rourke in the house and this new man. He raised the shotgun. Stand off. James yelled. He's Creek. Dobie roared, ducking behind a rain barrel. It's the light horseman. He's in on it, boss. Heck, at the front, heard him. He saw the splintered front door. He heard the .45 to 70 from upstairs. He heard his man in the alley. He made the connection. It was all a setup. The escape. The murder. The false trail. The light horse were in it. Samuel. James. And Sample. They were all in it, holed up, protecting the killer, protecting the money. They're holed up. Heck yelled to Dobie. It's a conspiracy. We're talking 'em. Front and back. Inside, behind the horsehair chair, Eldridge Sample heard it. He heard Dobie. He heard Heck. Boom. Rourke fired again, just for fun, the slug punching another hole in the lobby wall. You brought friends, Marshal? Rourke's voice laughed from the dark. Sounds like your posse's fighting itself. Eldridge was in a box. He had Rourke above him, a cannon in his hands. He had Heck outside, a fool with a badge. Heck. Eldridge yelled. Rourke's upstairs. He's the killer. Shut up, Sample. Heck roared back. I knew you were in on it. You're all traitors. Heck raised his pistol and fired into the dark lobby at the chair. The bullet whined past Eldridge's ear. It's a two-front war, Marshal, Rourke called down, his voice full of joy. And you're the man in the middle. This is my town. Rourke fired the .45 to 70 again, this time not at Eldridge, but through the floor, a blind shot. Heck's kid deputy, trying to get to the side of the porch, screamed as the slug tore through the floorboards and ripped his leg open. He fell off the porch, his gun clattering, grabbing his thigh. He's hit. Heck yelled. They shot the kid. They're furring through the floor. He turned to Dobie. Light him up. Light that whole damn house up. Dobie raised his Sharps. James, in the alley, saw the big rifle swing his way. He fired his shotgun, the buckshot spraying the side of the house, a warning. He's furring back. Dobie yelled. Eldridge was trapped. Pinned by Rourke. Pinned by Heck. Heck's posse opened fire. A volley of pistol and rifle shots slammed into the front of the rooming house. Wood splintered. Glass broke. A bullet from Dobie's sharps came through the back wall, tore through the lobby, and hit the staircase, sending a cloud of splinters into Eldridge's face. Rourke upstairs just laughed. Chapter 18. He's in the chair. Heck's voice was a raw-throated roar from behind the horse trough. Saw him move. Pour it on him, Dobie. Eldridge Sample didn't breathe. He pressed his face into the dusty carpet behind the horsehair chair. The chair was a ghost of cover, a suggestion. It wouldn't stop a thing. A bullet from Heck's pistol punched through the wall, 6 inches from his head, filling the air with plaster dust. Boom! The buffalo gun fired from upstairs. Rourke wasn't aiming at him. He was aiming at Heck. The slug hit the iron trough in the street. The sound was a deafening gong, like a church bell for a funeral. He's shooting at us. Heck yelled, ducking. They're in it together. I knew it. Eldridge saw his chance. Heck was distracted, his head down. Eldridge pushed the ruined chair over, grabbed his Winchester, and scrambled low and fast across the lobby. He dove behind the front desk. It was solid oak, thick. Better cover. Where'd he go? Heck's voice. Eldridge got his rifle up, resting it on a stack of ledgers. He could see the street. He could see Heck's boot. Alley. Dobie's voice from the back. He's still here. The engine's still here. A shotgun boomed from the alley. James. He's furrin' again. Dobie yelled. A second later, his Sharps rifle answered, the heavy thump of it shaking the whole house. The bullet, a .45 to 70, tore through the back wall, through the kitchen, and buried itself in the wall opposite Eldridge. Damn it, Dobie, don't shoot the house. Heck roared. You'll hit me. Just trying to pin him, boss. You're in a box, Marshal. Rourke's voice from the top of the stairs. He was enjoying this. Got my own private army outside, shooting at you. And I'm up here. Who you gonna shoot at first? Eldridge didn't answer. He was listening. Rourke was on the landing, not in the room. He was protected by the angle. Kid's bleeding out, boss. The thin deputy, the one with the cough, yelled from the porch. He's hit bad. Move him. Heck yelled. Drag him behind the trough. Boom. Rourke fired again, through the floor, near the front door. The thin deputy screamed, as splinters hit his face. He scrambled back, leaving the kid where he lay. The kid was crying, a high, thin sound. My leg, oh God, my leg. Heck. Eldridge yelled, his voice a whip crack. He's shooting at you. He's the killer. The man from the river. Liar. Heck fired his pistol into the front window. Glass exploded. You and your Creek friends. You're protecting him. You're all in it for the money. What money? Rourke called down, his voice full of mock surprise. You fellas fightin' over money. I thought this was about justice. He laughed. Eldridge looked at the staircase. He looked at the front door. He was trapped between a fool and a professional. James. Eldridge shouted, not knowing if he could be heard. You hit. A moment. Then from the alley, a weak yell. He's just breaking wood. I'm fine. Good, Eldridge muttered. Talking to your friend? Rourke asked. He'd moved. His voice was coming from the right, down the upstairs hall. He's pinned. You're pinned. And the cavalry, well, the cavalry is shooting the wrong men. This is a fine goddamned mess you made, Sample. Eldridge was calculating. Rourke had a single shot. It was a heavy caliber, but it was slow. He'd fire, then he'd have to reload. A 10-second window. Heck's men were firing pistols. Fast, but inaccurate. Dobie, in the back, had another buffalo gun. He was the real problem. Dobie, Heck yelled. Fire at the top window. Keep his head down. What about the engine in the alley? He ain't going nowhere. Shoot the window. Eldridge heard Dobie shift. He heard the heavy thump of the sharps. The upstairs window exploded in a shower of glass. Boom. Rourke fired back from the other window. He'd moved again. The slug hit the rain barrel Dobie was using for cover. The barrel exploded, staves and water flying everywhere. Dobie yelped, exposed. James fired the shotgun, the buckshot raking the dirt, forcing Dobie to scramble for a new spot. He's in the alley. Dobie screamed, his voice high now. He's trying to flank me. Hold him. Heck yelled. Just hold him. Rourke laughed from upstairs. He was having the time of his life. They're not very organized, Marshal, he called. Eldridge knew he had maybe one chance. The kid on the porch was still crying. Please. I'm bleeding, please. Heck. Eldridge yelled. Your man is dying. You're shooting at a federal marshal. Stand your men down. You stand down, traitor. Heck roared. He popped up from behind the trough and fired 3 quick shots into the lobby. Come on out, Sample. Come out with your hands up. He's not gonna listen, Eldridge said to himself. He looked at the wall next to him. Plaster wood lathe. It wouldn't stop the sharps. It wouldn't even stop Heck's pistol. Rourke, Eldridge yelled. I'm here, Marshal. What's the land deal? The question hung in the air. The shooting from outside tapered off, just Heck's men reloading. What? Rourke's voice cautious now. The land deal. With Lockhart. In Okmulgee. Was it worth all this? You're a smart man, Sample. Smarter than the fat one. He's not smart, Eldridge said. He's just angry. And he's got a badge. Just like me. Boom. Rourke fired. Not at Eldridge. At the street. At Heck. The slug tore a chunk out of the trough. He's shooting again. Heck dove flat. Fire. Fire at the windows. The posse opened up again, a ragged volley. Bullets tore through the lobby. This was the window. Eldridge stood up. Not fast. He just stood. Heck. His voice was a parade ground roar. It cut through the gunfire. The shooting stopped. Eldridge walked out from behind the desk. He held his Winchester in one hand, pointed at the floor. His other hand was up, open. He walked to the splintered doorway. Cease fire, deputy, Eldridge said. He stood in the doorway, the setting sun at his back. A perfect target for Rourke, a perfect target for Heck. Heck, his face black with powder, stared at him from behind the trough. You're... Heck raised his pistol. I'm walking out, Eldridge said. To talk. You're shooting your own men. You're shooting at me. And the man you want is laughing at you. It's a trick. Heck said to Dobie. Rourke's voice came from the window, calm. He's right, Heck. It's a trick. Shoot him. Eldridge didn't move. He stood, his hand up, waiting. Chapter 19. Rourke's voice came from the upstairs window, calm, cutting through the sudden silence. He's right, Heck. It's a trick. Shoot him. Heck raised his pistol, the barrel unsteady, aimed at Eldridge Sample's chest. He was breathing hard, his face black with powder. He was a man holding a losing hand, looking for a way to knock the table over. Drop the rifle, Sample, Heck said, his voice a low, strangled growl. I'll kill you where you stand. Boss, please. The kid on the porch. His voice was a wet gurgle. He was trying to crawl, leaving a thick black trail. "He's dying, Heck," Eldridge said, his voice flat. "You're letting him die." You. Heck licked his lips. He was trapped. He looked at the crying kid, at the dark window Rourke was in, at Eldridge. Rourke saw the hesitation. He saw his private army falling apart. He needed the noise back. "Too much talking," Rourke said. He'd moved to the other front window. The thin deputy, Cletus, was hiding behind a weak wooden porch rail, trying to get a shot at the alley. He was exposed from above. Boom! The .45 to 70 fired. The sound was deafening. Cletus screamed, a high, thin sound. He didn't fall. He was thrown, his rifle spinning, his body slamming back against the house wall, his arm a red ruin. He slid to the porch floor, still. The kid stopped crying. He just stared. Heck looked at Cletus. He looked at the kid. He looked at the smoking window. The stupid blind rage on his face was gone, replaced by something else. Something cold. He looked at Eldridge. "He shot my man," Heck said, his voice quiet. "He's the killer," Eldridge said. "He's been playing you. He's upstairs. Are you going to let him?" Heck's face was a mask of pure animal hate. He wasn't a marshal. He wasn't a bully. He was just a man who'd been pushed too far. "Dobie!" Heck roared, his voice cracking. "Boss!" Dobie's voice from the alley. "The stairs. He's on the stairs. Light up the goddamn stairs." Heck stood up from behind the trough. He didn't care about cover. He walked forward, his .44 bucking in his hand, firing round after round into the dark lobby at the base of the staircase. Boom! Rourke fired back. The slug tore a chunk of wood out of the porch roof, 2 feet over Heck's head. Heck didn't even flinch. "He's mine, Marshal!" Heck yelled. "He's mine!" "He's ours," Eldridge said. In the alley, James heard the change. He heard Heck roaring at the stairs, not at him. He saw Dobie shift his sharps, aiming it at the house, not the alley. James stepped out from behind the steps, his shotgun at his hip. Dobie spun, bringing the big rifle around. "Upstairs!" James yelled, his one good eye wide. "He's upstairs." Dobie stared at the broken, swollen face of the light horseman. He looked at the house. He looked at James. He spat in the dust. "Then let's go get him." Dobie turned and ran for the front of the house, his rifle ready. James was right behind him. This was Eldridge's cover. "Rourke!" Eldridge yelled, and fired his Winchester into the ceiling. Boom! Rourke fired back, a blind shot trying to find him. Dobie's sharps fired from outside. The heavy slug tore through the front wall, through the staircase, and into the back of the house. The entire landing, where Rourke had been, exploded in a cloud of splinters and plaster dust. "Now!" Eldridge yelled. He didn't run to the stairs. He ran to the wall. He hit it with his shoulder, crashing through the thin lath and plaster into the front parlor. He heard Rourke curse as the stairs disintegrated. He heard him run. Not down. Down was death. He was running toward the back rooms. Eldridge got to his feet in the dark parlor. He could smell cheap perfume and old dust. He heard Heck and Dobie firing from the street, pinning Rourke. He ran for the back of the house to cut him off. He burst into the kitchen. Rourke was there. He'd come down the back stairs, the ones for the maids. He was at the back door, his hand on the knob. He spun. He was 10 feet away. Rourke was fast. He brought the big rifle up. But the rifle was a yard long. In the narrow kitchen, it was slow. It was clumsy. Eldridge's Winchester was already at his hip. He didn't aim. He fired. Twice. The .44 to 40 slugs hit Rourke in the chest, 1, 2. They sounded like a carpet beater hitting a rug. Thump. Thump. Rourke's eyes went wide. He looked down at his chest. He looked at Eldridge. He wasn't a smooth talker from Kansas. He was just a man, surprised, full of holes. He fired the .45 to 70. The rifle was aimed at the floor, the trigger a reflex. The boom was so loud, it blew the cabinet doors open. The slug tore through the floorboards, through the porch, and into the dirt. Rourke slid down the wall, his rifle clattering. He was dead. The shooting stopped. Eldridge stood in the kitchen, the smoke burning his eyes. His ears rang. He heard boots on the front porch. Slow. Heavy. Heck stood in the kitchen doorway. His pistol was at his side. He looked at Rourke, dead on the floor. He looked at the buffalo gun. He looked at Eldridge. He shot Cletus, Heck said. His voice was hollow. He killed Tima, Eldridge said. He killed Kona. He killed Johnny. James and Dobie crowded in behind Heck, their guns up, their faces black with powder. Heck looked at the body. He looked at the size 9 boots. He looked at Eldridge. He didn't say thank you. He didn't say he was wrong. He just nodded once. Well, at least the paperwork's gonna be easy. Chapter 20. Easy paperwork, Eldridge Sample said, his voice flat. You're down 2 men. Heck's face, black with powder, went slack. The rage was gone, leaving him looking old and heavy. He looked past Eldridge, at Rourke's body, then back. Cletus, and the kid. The kid's on the porch, Eldridge said. He was bleeding bad. Heck pushed past him, his boots heavy, and went back through the house. The lobby was a wreck of splintered wood and plaster dust. Heck stood in the ruined doorway, looking out. The kid deputy was a dark shape, curled up by the steps. He wasn't moving. Kid. Heck said. His voice was too loud. The kid didn't answer. He's dead, boss, Dobie said, his voice a low rumble. He stood on the porch, his big Sharps rifle held at his side. He hadn't followed Heck into the kitchen. He'd been looking at Cletus, the man Rourke had shot. And Cletus, his arms gone. Heck just stared at the kid. 3 men. He'd brought 3 men. And Dobie. He was going back with 1. Eldridge walked out onto the porch. The air was cold, the dawn a gray line to the east. Mr. Shaw was still by the horse trough, his hands over his face, shaking. Heck, Eldridge said. Heck turned slow. You've got 2 dead deputies. You're on Creekland. You were firing on a federal marshal. And you were chasing the wrong man. Heck's hand twitched toward his pistol, a last dying reflex. Don't, Eldridge said. It's over. Heck looked at Eldridge, at the Winchester in his hands. He looked at James, who was standing in the alley, his shotgun aimed at Dobie. He looked at Dobie, who was just waiting. You set me up, Heck said, but the words had no force. It was a question. No, Eldridge said. Rourke set you up. He set us all up. He killed Tima. He knew Teeter was in the jail. He knew Teeter would run for the money. He knew you were coming. He just lit all the fuses. The money. Heck said, his mind slow, trying to catch up. The money's in Tahlequah. Teeter's dead, Eldridge said. He's in Tahlequah. So is the money. It's safe. Heck looked at his 2 dead men. He looked at the .45 to 70 on the kitchen floor. He looked at the .45 to 70 in Dobie's hands. He saw it, all of it. The setup. The cartridge. The boot print. He'd been a fool. The paperwork, Heck said, his voice hollow, is gonna be hell. That's Shaw's job, Eldridge said. He nodded to the lawyer, who was still trembling. We need a wagon, Heck said to Dobie. For the boys. Dobie nodded, his face grim. I'll find one. He walked off, his rifle heavy on his shoulder, leaving Heck alone on the porch. Eldridge walked over to James. The light horseman was leaning against the wall, his shotgun on the ground. His one good eye was on Heck. You all right? Eldridge asked. He's a loud man, James said, his voice thick from his broken face. He got Cletus killed. And the kid. He was following orders, Eldridge said. Parker's. He was following his own gut, James said. And it was wrong. Eldridge looked at the rooming house. Rourke was still in the kitchen. We need to get him. And we need to ride. Ride where? Tahlequah, Eldridge said. Samuel's hurt bad. Anna's alone. And we've got a dead man here, who just killed 2 federal deputies. Heck ain't gonna let us go. Heck's not in charge. Eldridge walked back to Heck. The big deputy was sitting on the porch step, his head in his hands. He looked small. Deputy, Eldridge said. Heck looked up, his eyes bloodshot. I'm riding for Tahlequah, Eldridge said. To report to Captain Checote. Rourke is dead. Teeter is dead. The money is secure. This is your scene. Heck looked at the dead kid. My scene. You write the report, Eldridge said. You tell Parker what happened. You tell him Rourke killed Tima. You tell him Rourke killed your men. You tell him I assisted. Heck stared at him. You're giving it to me. It's yours, Eldridge said. You came for a killer. You found him. The paperwork's easy. Just leave Okmulgee out of it. Leave Checote out of it. This was Rourke. Start to finish. Heck understood. Eldridge was giving him a way out. A way to not look like a fool who'd gotten his men killed for nothing. Yeah, Heck said, his voice a rasp. Rourke. That's right. He was holed up. We flushed him. You took him down. That's the story, Eldridge said. And the money. The money's in Tahlequah, Eldridge said. Secured. At the Light Horse office. Federal property. You can send a man for it. When it's quiet. Heck nodded, slow. Yeah. When it's quiet. Eldridge turned. James. Let's get the horses. They walked down the alley, their boots quiet. The sun was up. A dog was barking. They got to the horses, Thomas's roan and Johnny's mount. You just let him have it? James asked, his voice full of disbelief. After he. Heck's a problem, Eldridge said, swinging into the saddle. But Parker's the disease. Heck's going back to Fort Smith with 2 dead deputies and a story about a hero. He'll be quiet. He'll let Shaw write the paper. And they'll leave this place, this town, alone. And the money? The money's with Anna, Eldridge said. Where it belongs. That's thievin', Marshal, James said, a slow, painful smile on his broken face. No, Eldridge said, turning the roan north. That's a widow's pension. Samuel said so. They rode out of Okmulgee north, just as the sun cleared the rooftops. Chapter 21. He's breathing, Anna Going Snake said. She sat in the chair by the cot, the one her husband used to sit in, her shotgun resting across her lap. The morning light, clean and sharp, cut across the floor of the wrecked Light Horse office. Eldridge Sample stood in the doorway. He was still wearing the soot and grime from Okmulgee. He'd been riding all night. Thomas's roan, which he'd left tied to the rail, looked like it had never been run. The doctor? Eldridge asked. He came. He changed the bandage. He said, "He's a hard man to kill." Anna looked at Samuel Checote, who was pale and still, but his chest was rising and falling, slow and steady. "He'll live." James was asleep in the other chair, his broken face resting on his chest, the light horse shotgun in his lap. He looked like a man who'd been run over by a wagon. "It's done," Eldridge said. Anna looked up at him. Her eyes were black, unreadable. "Rourke?" "Dead." "Teeter?" "Dead." "Heck. He's going back to Fort Smith. He lost 2 men. He's got a new story to tell." Anna stood. She walked to the safe, the one behind the map. She pulled the canvas bag of gold out. It landed on the desk with a heavy, soft thud. "This," she said, "is federal property." "No," Eldridge said. "It's a widow's pension. Samuel said so." "Samuel was shot," she said. "He was emotional. It's evidence. It's the money they killed for. It's the reason Johnny's dead. It's the reason my husband—" She stopped. She put her hand on the bag. "Judge Parker will come for it," Eldridge said. "He sent Heck. He'll send someone else. Someone harder. Or he'll send the cavalry. Let them come." She pushed the bag toward him. "Take it." "What?" "Take it." Anna's voice was sharp. "Take it back to Fort Smith. You ride in. You give Judge Parker his money. You give him Rourke's body. You give him your report. You tell him it's finished." "Heck's report," Eldridge said, "is going to say Rourke was the killer. And that the money is secure. Here. In Tahlequah." "Heck's a fool." Anna looked at him. "You're not. You're a federal marshal. You walk in with the money. You're a hero. Parker forgets Okmulgee. He forgets Samuel. He forgets everything. He gets what he wants. He leaves us alone." "He leaves you alone," Eldridge said. "And I go back to being his man." "You were always his man, Marshal. You just took a long ride." Eldridge looked at the money. 2,500 in gold. The cause of all of it. He thought of Thomas, falling in the chimney. He thought of Kona, the jailer, dead for a plate of cornbread. He thought of the 2 deputies, dead in Okmulgee because of Heck's pride. He pushed the bag back. "No," he said. "No. It's a widow's pension." Eldridge looked at Samuel, still sleeping, then at James. "Thomas died. Johnny died. Kona died. Samuel, he almost did. For this. For their land. For your town." He picked up the .45 70 slug he'd taken from Rourke's kitchen and put it on the desk next to the money. "That's the evidence. Rourke's dead. Teeter's dead. Heck's got his report. That's all Parker needs." "He'll come for the money," Anna said, her voice softer. "Let him." Eldridge walked to the door. He was stiff, his whole body an ache. "He sends another man. He'll have to talk to Samuel. He sends the cavalry. He'll have to talk to the whole Cherokee nation. And the Creek." "And you?" she asked. "I've got a report to write." He walked out into the sunlight. He untied the roan, Thomas's horse. He put his foot in the stirrup and swung up. He looked back at the office. Anna was standing in the doorway, the bag of money in her hands. "Marshal," she said. He waited. "Thank you." Eldridge Sample nodded. "Once." He turned the horse east, toward the river, toward Fort Smith. Toward Parker. Chapter 22. He says you're a hero. Judge Parker was standing at his window, his back to the room. He was holding a piece of paper. It wasn't a telegraph. It was a report, 3 pages, written in a cramped, precise hand. Eldridge Sample stood in the doorway. He hadn't bothered to clean up. He was still wearing the soot from the rooming house and the trail dust from the ride. He smelled of sweat and horses. "Heck's report?" Eldridge asked. "Mr. Shaw's," Parker said, turning. His face was unreadable, the iron-gray beard neat, his eyes flat. "Heck just signed it. It says he and his men were beset by a conspiracy, led by a land buyer named Rourke. It says Rourke murdered the merchant, Tima. It says he engineered the escape of Amos Teeter." Parker walked to his desk. "It says you and Deputy Heck cornered Rourke in a rooming house. It says Rourke killed Deputy Cletus and the new kid. What was his name?" "He just called him Kid," Eldridge said. "Killed them," Parker continued, "in the ensuing firefight. It says you, Marshal, broke into the rear of the house and shot Rourke twice in the chest, ending the threat." Parker sat down. He steepled his fingers. "It's a fine piece of work, Mr. Shaw's report. It makes Heck look brave. It makes his dead men look like martyrs. And it makes you look like the man who pulled the trigger." Eldridge just waited. "It also says," Parker said, his voice dropping, "that the federal property, the $2,500, is secure. In Tahlequah. At the Light Horse office. Pending federal transport." He looked up at Eldridge. "Heck's man, Dobie, is waiting at the livery. He's waiting for you, Marshal, to ride back to Tahlequah and transport the money." "He'll be waiting," Eldridge said. Parker's eyes went still. "What does that mean, Sample?" "It means Heck's report is a lie. It's a report. The money's not at the Light Horse office," Eldridge said. "It's with Anna Going Snake, Thomas's widow. It's hers." Parker didn't move. He didn't blink. He just sat there, the light from the window catching the silver in his beard. The air in the room got cold. "You did what?" "Heck was chasing a ghost. He was firing on me. He was firing on James, the light horseman. Rourke was playing him. Rourke was a professional. He set the whole thing up." "And the money?" Parker's voice was a whisper. "The money," Eldridge said, "was a pension. Samuel Checote said so. I agreed." "You agreed?" Parker stood up. He wasn't loud like Heck. He was quiet. "It was worse. I gave you a direct order. I gave you a writ. I gave you a posse." "You gave me a fool," Eldridge said. "Heck got 2 of his own men killed. He almost got me killed. He almost got James killed. He was your superior officer on this, Marshal. He was a bully with a badge. He wasn't the law. I am the law, Mr. Sample." Parker hit his desk, his fist landing with a crack. The ink bottle jumped. "The law says that is federal property. And you gave it away. You gave it to an Indian. I left it with a widow. Her husband died following your orders. He died doing his job. And she got paid for it." Parker stared at him. He was breathing hard, his face a dark red. He saw a man he didn't recognize. He didn't see his Marshal. He saw a man from the territory. "You're compromised, Sample," Parker said. "All those weeks out there. With them. With Checote. They got to you. You've forgotten who you work for." "I know who I work for. I just don't know what it's worth." Eldridge looked at the .45 to 70 slug he'd taken from Rourke's kitchen. He'd been rolling it in his hand. He put it on the desk, on top of Shaw's report. "That's from Rourke's rifle. The one he killed Tima with. The one he killed Heck's men with. That's your proof. Rourke is dead. Teeter, he's dead too. In Tahlequah. He killed a light horseman named Johnny. He took Anna hostage. I killed him. More dead, Parker said. All of them. Jim. Rourke. Teeter. Cruz. All of them dead. No trials. No hangings. Just bodies. You're a butcher, Sample. Not a marshal. I finished the job, Eldridge said. Both of them. No. Parker walked around the desk. He stood 2 feet from Eldridge. You're finished. You're suspended, Marshal. Indefinitely. Your badge. He held out his hand. I don't care about the money, Parker said, his voice a low hiss. I don't care about Teeter. I care about this. The law. You broke it. You defied it. You defied me. You're done. Eldridge looked at Parker's open hand. He looked at his iron-gray eyes. He unpinned his badge. The tin star felt heavy. He didn't put it in Parker's hand. He dropped it on the desk. It landed on the slug, on the report. Captain Checote is recovering, Eldridge said, turning. He's at the Light Horse office in Tahlequah. You want that money, you'll have to send someone else. I will, Parker said. He'll have to talk to Samuel. And he'll have to talk to Anna. She's got a shotgun. And she knows how to use it. Eldridge Sample walked out of the office. He didn't slam the door. He just closed it, leaving Parker alone with the badge, the slug, and the lies. Chapter 23. Eldridge Sample closed Parker's door, the click of the latch soft, final. He stood in the hall. The courthouse smelled of floor wax and old paper. Doolin, the clerk, was at his desk, pretending to write. He didn't look up. No one did. Eldridge walked down the hall, his boot heels loud on the polished floor. He walked past the warrant room, past the cells. He walked out onto the steps, into the bright, hot afternoon. Marshal. The voice came from the street. Deputy Dobie, Hexman, was leaning against the horse trough, his Sharps rifle propped beside him. He looked tired. He looked like he'd been waiting. Eldridge walked down the steps, into the dust. He stopped at the bottom. You're not wearing your badge, Dobie said. It wasn't a question. Judge kept it, Eldridge said. He walked past him, to the hitching rail. Thomas Going Snake's roan was still tied there, its head low, waiting. Eldridge untied the reins. He kept it. Dobie's voice was slow, confused. But Shaw's report, it said you were a hero. It said you. Shaw's report, Eldridge said, is a story. The judge read a different one. He put his hand on the roan's neck. Hex at the Undertaker's? Him and Shaw. Dobie nodded. With the boys. The kid and Cletus. Hex report also says the money is in Tahlequah, Eldridge said. Pending transport. That's why I'm here. Dobie brightened, a man remembering his orders. Hex said. Wait for you. We were supposed to ride. To transport it. Heck lied to you, Dobie. Eldridge turned to face him. There's nothing to transport. The money's gone. Dobie's face, sunburned and bearded, went slack. Gone? But the widow? It's a pension, Eldridge said. Judge Parker knows. I told him. And he just took your badge. I'm suspended, Eldridge said. Heck's a fool. He got 2 men killed. I said so. The judge, he doesn't like his reports contradicted. Dobie looked at the courthouse, at the federal eagle carved over the door. He looked at Eldridge. He saw the soot, the cuts, the man. He looked at his own Sharps rifle. So, what about me? Dobie asked. What's my orders? Your orders are to wait for a bully who's halfway drunk at the Undertaker's. A man who's writing a report to save his own skin. Eldridge started leading the roan down the street. Or, you can take your rifle, draw your pay, and ride home. Your choice. Dobie watched him go. He was a fool, wasn't he? Heck. He was loud, Eldridge said, not looking back. It's not the same thing. But it's close. He walked to the livery. The liveryman saw him coming, saw the roan. You're back, Marshal? Just Sample. Eldridge stopped. I need a horse. One way. To Tahlequah. Going back. Again. I'm returning this one. Eldridge patted the roan. That's Thomas's horse, ain't it? The liveryman said, his voice low. I heard what happened. In Tahlequah. Teeter. You heard right. And I heard the judge ain't happy. About the money. The judge, Eldridge said, is 2 days' ride from Tahlequah. I need a horse. He'll send someone else, won't he? For that pension. He'll send them, Eldridge said. You ridin' back to stop him? Eldridge looked at the man. I'm just returning a horse. A long ride. For a horse. The liveryman looked at the roan, then at Eldridge. You'll want the dun. He's ugly, but he's got miles. He'll cost you $12. Eldridge pulled his pay from his pocket. $30. He counted out the money. He swapped his saddle from the roan to the dun. The dun was a block-headed, sour-looking animal, but its legs were clean and its eyes were clear. He swung into the saddle. He tied the roan's lead rope to his horn. He rode out of the livery. He passed Dobie, who was still standing by the trough, holding his rifle. Dobie didn't say anything. He just watched. Eldridge rode to the ferry. He paid the ferryman. The new man. He stood on the deck, the Arkansas River sliding past, brown and slow. He was leaving Fort Smith. He had no badge. He had no orders. He was just a man with 2 horses heading west. He felt the .44 on his hip, the Winchester in his scabbard. He looked at the empty place on his flannel shirt where the star had been. He didn't feel suspended. He didn't feel finished. He felt light. The ferry bumped against the muddy western bank. Eldridge kicked the dun, and the horse walked up the ramp into the territory. Western. Love audiobooks? Get over 100 Wild Western audiobook on YouTube. Subscribe for full listens, no fluff. Wild Western Roundup. Want even more action-packed adventures in the Wild West? Join the posse. Download your free copy of Wrangler today. Or keep reading the Rip Campbell Wild Western series in Amazon. The end. Do you want over 100 free Wild Western audiobooks? Western thrillers. Don't forget to check the pinned comment to get free Wild West novel downloads.